Once, the world was ours, until the monsters came. They slipped into our world like shadows, chaos reigned, fear swallowed cities. And heroes? Most of them died screaming. But one man didn't run, one man fought back. Carcelion, once a legend, now a ghost with a blade. He didn't fight for glory, he fought because he had nothing left to lose. But fate wasn't done. Somewhere far away, on a blue planet called Earth, a dying boy made a wish. He didn't beg for life, he begged for his family's safety. And something inside Carcelion stirred. Carcelion was reborn, in a teenage body, on a new world, with one mission: protect the boy's family. Meet Carcelion, now known as Seo Dojun. No rules, no patience. He hunts monsters, breaks laws, and wrecks anyone dumb enough to stand in his way. But even gods have soft spots, and for this little sister, he'll burn the world down if he has to. From monsters to family drama, this ain't just a power fantasy. It's the return of a god warrior. And Earth is not ready. Hello guys, welcome to this channel. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment. It really helps me grow this channel and bring you more awesome recaps. Okay, without further ado, let's diving into the story. Monsters somehow sneaked into the world, bringing nothing but chaos and fear everywhere they went. People fought hard, doing whatever they could to keep their homes safe. Many gave their last breath in these battles. Among them stood Carcelion, a dude who used to be called a legendary warrior. He battled those monsters like he had nothing to lose. Year after year, he kept fighting, swinging his trusty blade, and dropping every creature in sight. Fear? Nah, that word meant nothing to him. Then, one wild day, Carcelion found himself face to face with a monster tougher than any he had ever seen. This monster is some kind of giant from Attack on Titan. That thing was no joke. That monster mocked him for giving up, because his world is gone already. He said it was a waste of talent, and asked him to become his sword. Carcelion said, "What a joke," from a fucker mouth. And he rushed in. The fight was straight up brutal, but in the end, Carcelion managed to take down his enemy. Even after all that though, he didn't make it out alive. He too lost his life right there on the battlefield. Fate though had a twisted sense of humor. Carcelion's soul drifted through endless blackness, where he bumped into a human boy from some far-off planet called Earth. The kid, named Seo Dojun, was on the edge of dying, though nobody knew exactly how he got there. Just before he died for real, the boy wanted to make a wish. Carcelion, tired of everything, just rolled his eyes and refused before even hearing what the kid wanted. He was tired, lost his country, lost his friends, and met his end like a stray dog. He didn't want to deal with any more nonsense. But Seo Dojun wasn't trying to be selfish. He was ready to die too, but he desperately wanted his family to be safe and happy. Finally, his sincerity broke through. Carcelion listened, and when the boy nervously asked for someone to take care of his family, Carcelion decided to help out. He agreed, and bam! Suddenly Carcelion ended up on Earth, squeezing into the body of that teenage kid. Dude, I really want a blonde MC right now, but whatever, black hair it is. With a new face and new life, Carcelion's got one thing to do: take care of Seo Dojun's family. But his warrior vibes never faded. He quickly found himself trying to get into the Namsan Gate, a dangerous place ranked C. Only real-deal heroes with an official license could walk in. There was a machine there, annoyingly telling him to scan a card he didn't have. So what did he do? He just smashed his way inside like it was no big deal. That, obviously, set off alarms everywhere. Carcelion didn't care. He was there for monsters, not parties. Okay, since he became Dojun now, let's call him our goat Carcelion to Dojun. He walked through the gate, scanning for anything that even looked like trouble. That's when a group of real heroes spotted him. These guys had the right papers and everything. They looked him up and down, noticing he had on regular clothes and a bag that screamed, "Not a hero." They figured maybe he was just a lost porter, someone who helped out hero teams and usually wore simple gear. They decided to help him out, saying they'd show him the exit since they were on the way out too. But Dojun just stood there, super quiet, not wanting anyone's help. The heroes could already tell something was weird. He definitely didn't look like someone who belonged here. The leader guessed he must be one of those wannabes who watched too many hero television shows and thought monster hunting was as easy as it looked on screen. He warned Dojun that just barging in like that could get him killed, especially with no official training or paperwork. You had to start low, way lower than a C-rank gate, if you wanted to make it out alive. Rookie mistakes could cost a life in there. Dojun didn't want to hear these guys whining or dropping advice like he was 5. He made it clear he didn't need their help at all. That only made things more awkward. Some of the crew started getting mad, thinking they were just being nice, but the leader told them to chill. If this guy wanted to learn things the hard way, let him. Maybe he'd finally realize television makes fighting monsters look way easier than it actually is. Not too long after, Dojin ran into a monster. This wasn't just any beast, but a giant troll standing in his way, looking like it wanted a snack. The troll took a swing at him, but Dojin moved so fast the thing missed completely. A second later, he punched the troll with all his might, and the troll's head basically exploded. It was wild, just like a scene from some over-the-top superhero comic. With the danger gone, he started looting. First, he grabbed the sword the troll had dropped. Then, using his new weapon, he dug into the troll's body and pulled out a shiny stone. He knew it was only a low-grade magic stone, something he would have never picked up in his old life. But hey, he was broke and needed whatever he could get. Even trash like this can make money, right? Before he could even think about leaving, more monsters popped up. They saw what happened to the troll, and now rage filled their eyes. Dojin, never one to get scared, quickly chucked the magic stone so hard that it blew off another monster's head. The last two beasts charged at him like they had nothing to lose, and he was happy to knock them down too. Free money, I guess. While Dojin was cleaning up, things switched over to the hero group he'd met before. They were still marching through the gate, talking about that weird encounter with the boy. The orange-haired woman felt kind of worried for Dojin, afraid the kid would end up as another dead body in the gate. But the leader shook his head, saying there was no way something that crazy would happen. If the guy really didn't belong there, agents from the control center would pick him up and drag him out. Better yet, all those agents were strong, B rank or even tougher, so they could handle anything that popped up. And since Namsan Gate was only C rank, the leader said Dojin would be totally safe. That is, as long as he didn't go charging at monsters like some maniac. One of the other team members, the balding one, agreed. He figured the cocky kid from earlier was probably just hiding somewhere, shaking in his shoes, waiting for those strong agents to swoop in and save his ass. But out there in Namsan Gate, the reality was the total opposite. Dojin wasn't scared, like hell this damned weakling-ass monster like a troll could scare him. As far as he was concerned, this was just another day bashing monsters, no matter what world he ended up in or whose body he wore. All it took was one punch, and his enemies were dead. Well, Saitama awakening, I guess. The ugly troll couldn't even get close to Dojin, let alone hit him with their heavy swords. At one point, Dojin appeared behind one clueless monster and kicked him so hard that his whole head exploded. With all the monsters knocked out, Dojin grabbed one of their swords and started digging out shiny magic stones from their bodies. He filled his bag with as many as he could, but he wasn't excited about it. All those gems were low level and hardly worth anything. Today's hunt kind of felt like carrying dead weight. Right then, one of the gate agents finally noticed him. The agent quickly called over his co-workers. Before Dojin even had a chance to decide what to do, some men in suits turned up, looking super serious and blocking his way. They explained they were with the gate control center and asked Dojin to show his hero ID. If he couldn't show it, they said, he'd have to follow them back for questioning. Dojin stood there, not sure what to do, making the agent even more nervous. The lead guy started speaking colder, telling Dojin he must cooperate and follow the correct process. Dojin just got super annoyed by all the drama, feeling like these guys were slowing him down for no reason. But honestly, he was getting too tired to argue, so he just turned away, ready to leave. The agents weren't having it. They warned him about handcuffs and said they would use force if he didn't do what they said. One grumpy agent reached out, grabbed Dojin's arm tight, and said that if things got rough, Dojin would be the one to blame. It would be better for everyone, the guy suggested, to just talk it out and go peacefully instead of starting a brawl. This stupid officer is too dumb. Can he see all those dead trolls near them? They thought our boy was just some weakling? Of course Dojin looked done with these dudes. He grabbed the agent's hand back and told him, very clearly, to quit sticking his nose where it didn't belong. Hearing this, the nervous agent suddenly got super scared, feeling shivers all over. The two other agents pulled out these glowing batons. They were magic batons for fighting monsters, and could knock out an orc, but probably not our goat Dojin. He wasn't scared at all. He twisted the first agent's arm hard, making the poor guy whine and squirm. He gave his final warning. The three agents should go home now if they didn't want to lose even more face. Of course, the agents couldn't just quit. They tried swinging their magic weapons at Dojin, but none of them came even close to hitting him. Dojin moved like a ghost. He struck one in the back, another in the stomach, and then focused on the last guy, the one wearing glasses. This last agent realized he was in big trouble and got super tense. In a blink, Dojin seemed to vanish. Then, suddenly, he popped up and landed a strong punch right in the gut, making the guy double over in pain. KO, guys. By now, Dojin was completely sick of all this chaos and people chasing after him. He actually started to think maybe it wouldn't be so bad to register as a hero, just so these silly agents would stop popping up everywhere to hassle him. One of the agents told Dojin that as long as he stayed away from illegal stuff, no one would chase after him anymore. Then suddenly Dojin asked about something strange called a rift, which really confused the agent. Here's a quick break to explain. This world has lots of secret doorways that lead to other worlds filled with monsters. People call these doorways passages. You can find gemstones in these monster worlds, and they're used as a new kind of energy on Earth. Since these gems are important, the government keeps a tight watch on every passage. The ones open for heroes to hunt in are called gates, and the unknown space that hasn't been enclosed is known as the rift. The ones the government doesn't have under control are called rifts. Back in the story, Dojin felt annoyed about always being stalked by agents every time he stepped into one of these gates. The agent explained that if any unregistered person enters a gate, the story is the same every time. Alarms go off and agents rush over. If Dojin wanted to go into a rift instead, he was in for an even rougher time. Jumping into a rift was against the law, and nobody would cut him any slack. But Dojin didn't care about any of that boring stuff. He just grabbed the agent by the face and tossed him aside like a bag of garbage. The agent really regretted not calling for backup now, realizing this was way beyond his pay grade. Lying on the ground with what was probably a busted arm, the agent kept yelling that he was going to catch Dojin and see him behind bars. The scene changed again to the Hero Complex, a super busy place in Seoul's district. These days, the place was full of people buying and selling gems and monster loot. Dojin stepped inside one of the shops that dealt in magic stones. The shopkeeper barely looked up, just scrolling on his phone. Dojin told him he wanted to sell gems, and the guy instantly started bragging about how his store paid more than anywhere else. He went on and on about how his shop was the best in all of Korea. Dojin finally unloaded his bag, dumping all the bloody, low-level stones onto the counter. The guy's face twisted up like he had just stepped on something nasty. He definitely didn't like the blood everywhere, but he didn't complain out loud. Instead, he just got right to business. While counting and cleaning the stones, he asked if Dojin wanted some coffee. Dojin sat and sipped his cup, watching the owner go to work. Once all the stones were wiped down, the shopkeeper did the math. There were 12 small gems, 16 in the middle category, plus 5 more that were either above or below average. After taking away his big 40% fee, he told Dojin he would get about 5.5 million won for the lot. Hearing that, our boy isn't cool with handing over 40% of his hard-earned cash to the shopkeeper as commission. It felt totally unfair since he did all the hunting, got his hands dirty, and wasted a ton of time. So why did this guy act like he deserved almost half the money? The shopkeeper, on the other hand, acted like 40% was a great deal. He bragged that all the other shops charged 45% or even more, then cockily dared Dojin to take his stones and walk if he didn't like the price. Apparently, no other shop could do any better, or at least that's what the man claimed. No way was Dojin falling for that scam. Look at this shady-ass store. He started packing his precious stones right back into his bag. As soon as the owner saw his little trick was failing, he snatched at Dojin's hand and demanded payment for the appraisal service and the coffee Dojin drank earlier. That was 30,000 won for the appraisal and another 10,000 for coffee. Plus, the bloody gems ruined his expensive towel, or so he said. With all those fees, Dojin supposedly owed around 350,000 won. Dojin definitely wasn't bowing to this kind of garbage, no matter how much the shopkeeper insisted. When that didn't work, the owner tried to scare him by threatening to call in some class heroes as guards. Right on cue, 3 big guys stormed in from the back, demanding to know who was making trouble. Dojin glared so hard at the shopkeeper, the guy glared straight back, not willing to back down. What did you guys expect? Of course, the goat Dojin kicked all of these weak C-rank asses. After that, the shopkeeper looked sweaty, terrified, and way less tough than before. After Dojin smacked down all 3 of his tough guards without breaking a sweat, he came to the shopkeeper with a smile. Everyone realized who the real boss was. He quietly told the now shaky man that the new commission was going to be just 1%. No one argued when Dojin stared at them like he could see straight through their soul. They closed the deal, and Dojin walked out with a fat stack of money, earned by none other than his own fists. His grandma and his little sister, Yuna, couldn't believe their eyes when he brought home all that cash. Grandma actually started to wonder if Dojin was trying to get away with fakes, like maybe the money wasn't real. But he quickly made up a story, saying he just loaned money to a friend, and the business took off. Grandma didn't even remember Dojin having a friend like that, so he told another lie about it being some friend from his childhood. She eventually gave up on figuring it out, but Yuna was just cheering, super proud to see her big bro making them rich. Dojin gave his sister a pat and promised her that their lives would be so much better now. Yuna was so happy she started dancing around the room. Seeing his little sister bubbling with joy, Dojin realized he was actually making progress toward his promise. He remembered what the original owner of the body wished for, just for his grandma and his half-sister Yuna to be safe and happy. He remembered that moment right before the boy disappeared, and how he'd suddenly woken up as the new Dojin. Now, this small family was all he had, and he just wanted them to live safely and with everything they needed. His dream was to buy them the safest house in all of Korea, which cost a whopping 110 billion won. But he wasn't worried about making money. This earth is child's play for him. Well, this world had a lot in common with the ruined world he came from. Except here, the rifts, gates, and monsters were much weaker. He, who used to be called the Sword God, felt like this whole place was a newbie world, even when now he only has 1/10 of his original power. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Someone wanted to talk to Dojin. He got up to answer and saw 2 thugs waiting outside. These guys came to collect a crazy debt, nearly 48 million won. Dojin knew right away these must be loan sharks. The real Dojin had borrowed only 5 million won for his grandma's hospital, but now the sharks had bumped the debt up a ton because of their insane interest. They tracked Dojin because they saw he'd been making money in the gates and urged him to give them all the money. Their only payment was a knockout punch from Dojin that sent the big thug crashing across the hallway. Serve them right. The other guy just stood there with his jaw hanging open. Then Dojin glared at the skinny one and pointed out that he had already paid back more than 9 million won, so honestly, the sharks owed him interest. One more punch sent the guy flying, and he told him to tell the boss he'd pay a visit soon. After that, the scene shifted to a crowded mall. There, little Yuna couldn't stop smiling at the teddy bear shop. Dojin had taken her out for a treat and told her she could get anything she wanted. Really, Dojin wasn't always the softest guy. But from the real Dojin memories, he learned to care for Yuna like his own little sister. It warmed his heart remembering how sweetly the real Dojin treated her. He just hoped to keep doing the same, giving her as much kindness and love as he could. Yuna finally picked out the small, cute bunny she wanted, making sure not to be greedy. But Dojin picked an even bigger stuffed animal for her, encouraging her to choose whatever made her happy. Money wasn't a problem anymore. After the shopping spree, the brother and sister treated themselves to some delicious food, celebrating a better life together. As Dojin and Yuna enjoyed their food, a strange voice called out his name. They looked up to see a middle-aged woman walking over, followed by a bunch of bodyguards. This was Mina, and she definitely didn't come with peace. Right away, she started dragging Dojin down, picking on his outfit and mocking him about Yuna next to him. She went as far as insulting Dojin's family, joking that maybe Dojin did the same thing as his mom, had a child too young. Her words made Dojin super angry inside, but his little sister Yuna just sat there confused, not understanding why this random lady was being so mean. Mina then turned her attention to Yuna and asked her name. When Yuna said who she was, Mina realized she was Dojin's little sister. The woman didn't stop there. She even called Yuna's clothes a mess and made rude comments about their mother who had already passed away. All these mean words made Dojin even more furious, but for some reason he still kept cool and didn't start a fight. Even Mina was surprised to see Dojin control his anger so well and not react to her insults. Still, she wanted to push even further. She even asked Yuna if she knew what harlot meant. What a bitch. That was just too much. Thankfully, that's when Dojin had enough. He shot back and called Mina an ugly woman from an orc tribe. Well, I agree, guys. She is so ugly in and out. Hearing that, Mina was so surprised that she just froze and stared without saying a word. Okay, here's some background on why Dojin was even trying to hold back with this lady. The original Dojin was born outside of marriage and spent most of his childhood poor. His mom died when he was just 7, so he barely made it into his real dad's house. But after his dad got remarried and had a new son, Dojin got shut out completely. He wasn't treated as family at all, and things only got worse until he was kicked out completely. He could only count on his half-sister, living at his grandma's house. Thinking back, he felt sorry for the original Dojin. Even with all that pain, the boy had always tried to smile. Now, Dojin wanted to change everything about that old, broken life. It turns out, Mina is actually his stepsister. That's why he had tried so hard to ignore her at first. But he wasn't going to put up with her anymore. To Dojin, she was still as gross and mean as ever, acting dumb and rude, and always bossing people around. He told her off, saying she just made fun of others because she felt small herself. She was obsessed with looks and money, and all she could do was try to pull other people down so she'd feel better. As Dojin let his anger loose, the whole shopping mall started to watch them. Everyone stared while Mina looked ready to explode, but then someone else appeared. Dojin's stepmother, Chairman Hiju, arrived. As soon as Mina saw her mom, she ran up, whining and complaining that Dojin made her look bad. Instead of defending her, she just shut Mina up instantly with a single cold glare. This woman was tough and didn't play around. Then Chairman Hiju turned to Dojin, fake smile and all, and invited him to come back to their house to spend time together. Dojin knew better than to believe her. That woman is a real fucking snake. She was the one who had hurt him the most, making his life miserable for 12 long years. Now, Just hearing her fake kindness made him want to puke at her face. He looked her in the eyes and, with the iciest voice, told her that she was disgusting and asked her to get fucking lost. That was a blow to her pride. She was shocked to have Dojun talk back like that, but instead of making a scene, she just turned around and walked away with the last bit of her dignity. She wasn't used to this version of Dojun, the one who stood up for himself instead of bowing his head in silence. Mina hurried after her, throwing one last pity party, while the bodyguards simply followed these two women like silent statues. Dojun stood there, knowing the whole drama had ruined his fun day with Yuna. But this was all on purpose. He wanted to be clear that the boy who used to stay quiet and never speak up was gone. It was time his stepfamily got a wake-up call and saw that he had changed for good. Somewhere else, a fancy Mercedes zoomed down the street with Chairman Hiju and Mina inside. Mina was still fuming, scolding her mom for not fighting back with Dojun. She called Dojun all sorts of names and complained about being made to look bad in front of everyone. Chairman Hiju turned to her driver, Manager Lee, and snapped, asking why Dojun was still alive. Manager Lee had no idea. Everything said Dojun shouldn't have survived before. He nervously promised to check again and make sure next time their plan would work for real. While all this was happening, Mina had no idea about the dark stuff her mom had been up to. She was shocked to even hear her mother talk so calmly about life and death, like someone's life meant nothing. Then, out of nowhere, Chairman Hiju asked her if she had any feelings for Dojun. That question completely surprised that ugly pig. Her face turned red, and she started acting all weird and flustered. She wasn't worried about Dojun getting hurt for romantic reasons, though. She was just scared about what might happen if her grandpa or her dad found out about anything happening to Dojun. Everyone would be in serious trouble then. Seeing her daughter get nosy, the mom wasn't happy. She grabbed Mina by the mouth, holding her tight, and growled at her to stay far away from her business. "Guys, I'm scared. This woman is a devil." She then warned Mina over and over not to get involved with anything she was doing. In her head, Chairman Hiju was locked in on her plan. She wanted to get rid of Dojun for good. To her, killing Dojun out was the only way to get revenge and fix her pride. There was no way she was ever going to let him off the hook. About 10 years ago, everything in the world flipped upside down when the rifts appeared. These scary portals brought monsters with one goal: hunt down humans. The attacks never really stopped. Cities were destroyed, fires raged, and fear was everywhere. But, just like darkness, there came a light. Brave heroes began to show up, fighting back. The first people to challenge the monsters also found mana stones in their enemies' bodies after battle. Now, in the present, Dojun is on his way to a place and thinking about how mana stones changed the planet. With these stones around, countries stopped using old energy such as oil. Instead, everyone's focus turned to rifts since mana stones could be pulled out of them. All of society became focused on gates and on heroes. Because of this, heroes started getting rich. If you wanted good pay, you had to become a real hero. Dojun finally reached his destination, HCS Capital. The name sounds super fancy, but the people inside looked more like a bunch of street thugs than real business guys. The boss there, Chairman Huang, sat smoking with his sketchy friends. None of them looked friendly. Still, Dojun was relaxed and acted like he didn't care. The boss put out his cigarette and said Dojun had guts, showing up after beating his men. Dojun replied with his own logic, saying he was actually the one who suffered real losses here. Naturally, the boss thought that answer made no sense, so he asked what Dojun meant. Calm as ever, Dojun said he came to get a little compensation for all the stress, pain, and loss these goons brought into his life. That kind of talk made the boss suddenly stop and think. Dojun didn't seem like the same quiet kid from before, not after destroying that lackey at his door. The boss started to wonder if Dojun had awakened, just like some people do after surviving a gate. Even though he guessed something had changed about Dojun, the boss wasn't going to show fear. He said that getting cocky after an awakening would only bring Dojun's downfall. As proof, he waved over a group of his biggest, angriest-looking henchmen and tried to act tough. But to a real fighter like Dojun, someone who was the sword god in his past life, this whole squad looked like cockroaches. The boss went on, bragging that not even awakened people could avoid dying like rookie heroes, pretending Dojun was weak, maybe only D-class at best. But Dojun just chilled on the sofa, completely calm while 5 thugs glared at him. He told the boss to sit down and let him finish talking. The boss was surprised to hear that simple command spoken in such a serious way. One bold goon tried to stand up to Dojun, but Dojun took off his glasses, then delivered a punch that sent the guy flying across the room, like something out of a wild action movie. The rest of the group weren't safe either. Dojun knocked down the next one with no problem, still explaining all the shady business going on behind this money-lending cover story. He walked up to an orange-haired punk, proving that he knew about the boss's fake ID business too, then threw another knockout punch. He made it clear, all he wanted was a solid fake hero ID so he could register and make his fortune without trouble from anyone. When the last guy attacked, Dojin dodged and punched back even harder, sending every goon to dreamland with his special sleeping routine. Now, Dojin repeated his demand. Give him a perfect fake ID that won't cause problems later. The boss just sat there shocked, having watched his men wiped out in seconds. In his head, he guessed Dojin must be at least B-class in power. He was so deep in thought that Dojin had to snap him out of it. The boss quickly agreed to make the ID and have it ready in just one day. To top it all off, Dojin leaned in, gripping the boss's shoulder with a scary kind of politeness, and asked if Chairman Hiju, his stepmother, had really ordered to kill him. The boss panicked, frozen in fear as Dojin squeezed his shoulder until he cried in pain. None of the guys still standing dared help their boss, just watching helplessly. Dojin looked him right in the eye and waited for the truth. Finally, the boss spilled everything. Yes, Dojin's stepmother was behind the whole thing. She came up with a plan so twisted it could only come from someone evil. She wanted Dojin to end up so broke and stuck by money problems that he'd have nowhere left to turn except, well, to give up on life itself. All she cared about was draining every last bit of cash out of his bank account. That was her idea of revenge, even against someone she was supposed to treat like family. It was cold, shocking, and proof that Dojin's stepmom was much more dangerous than she pretended to be. What a bitch. After hearing all this, Dojin finally let the boss go. The man was begging and crying, but Dojin wanted some honest answers. He asked if that was also why they trapped him inside the gate. The boss quickly acted innocent and swore he had nothing to do with that. He even said he wouldn't get paid if Dojin died inside the gate. That kind of made sense, and Dojin began to think it over. He mentioned the name Sheol Wu, who was the person that brought him to the gate in the first place. Now, Dojin wanted every single detail about Sheol Wu by tomorrow. After saying what he wanted, Dojin left just as calmly as he came in, and the whole room felt totally different from when he first walked in. After leaving, Dojin fell deep into thought again. The original Dojin had only one real wish: to protect his grandma and little sister, no matter what it cost. With everything that happened, it was clear to Dojin how rough and unfair the kid's life had been. But that was about to change. The sword god was here to set things right. The next day, everything changed for Dojin. He was officially registered as a hero, and not just any hero. He was ranked B-class already. That was a pretty good move, since in most stories, the main character starts at the bottom. Dojin tapped his new card on the hero machine and the system checked. Yep, the card worked and said he was B rank. Still, it also warned him that the quest he wanted was too hard for someone of his level. Dojin just rolled his eyes, wishing he'd pushed that boss for a higher rank. But it was too late for that. Even though the system kept repeating that he shouldn't enter a dangerous gate above his level, Dojin ignored the warnings and went inside anyway. Let's talk a bit about the Night Island Gate. It was Class B, but truthfully, a B-rank hero wasn't really enough to clear it safely. They usually recommended only A rank or higher to solo it, since the dungeon was big, a D rank in area size, and had a ton of monsters hiding in tunnels. That makes hunting solo tough for most. But Dojin didn't care about risk or danger. He barely even knew what those words meant. The only real problem would be if he got cornered by buckets of monsters in one of the narrow tunnels. He just grinned when his first enemy slid into view, a huge snake with a crazy-looking purple glow. Most heroes would run for their lives at that, but Dojin only saw good luck. He got his special gloves ready and prepared to fight. Turns out, the giant snake had brought friends too, and their tongues slid around like something from a horror movie. They all attacked at once, but none of them could even touch him. The black killing vipers were nasty. One little touch of their poison and you'd be paralyzed. Still, it didn't matter. Dojin sped forward, unleashing a swing so quick it was almost invisible. He tore into the monster, splashing blood everywhere until its whole body was split in two. Lucky for him, those new gloves kept all the venom off his skin. For only 300,000 won, this gear is perfect. Moving fast, Dojin went after 4 more snakes, blowing straight through their heads in no time. Monster after monster fell until there was only a bloody mess left behind. Pausing to check for loot, he searched the monster bodies for mana stones. Sadly, there were none. Just like in his old world, black vipers only dropped stones about 3% of the time. That meant he'd have to hunt down hundreds just to get good loot today. Soon, Dojin found another massive snake. This one looked even bigger, maybe the boss. He joked to himself about asking it if it was the main boss, but obviously, snakes don't talk back. At least now he knew he wouldn't get lost in these tunnels. Not wanting to waste time, Dojin aimed to end the fight fast and get out. He landed a punch on the monster's head, but this time, nothing happened. The giant snake just got a new mark and seemed totally fine. Then, while Dojin was still in midair, the monster smacked him against the cave wall with its tail. He sat up from the crash, probably getting a little reality check about what this boss could do. The creature bared its poisonous fangs and hissed, looking seriously dangerous. Well, kind of like someone's girlfriend when she's hungry. I bet it looks like the girlfriend of my awesome subscriber named the Cat Seeking Freedom. Back to the story. The monster shot forward to bite Dojin, but he dodged just in time. Using the speed from his dodge, he slammed another punch into the monster, leaving more cracks in its hard, scaly shell. Now it was clear. This boss had armor way tougher than normal snakes. At his new B rank level, Dojin couldn't even break through in one hit. For the first time, he realized he might need a different strategy. If he still had his original sword god strength, he would have turned this beast to dust already. But right now, he'd have to outthink it and go all out to win. Then, as Dojin looked around, he saw something interesting. The sword of a fallen hero who had tried and failed to beat the boss before. This was the moment to show why he was called the sword god instead of the fist god. Even though the blade was totally beat up and looked barely usable, Dojin picked it up, knowing that a sword is only as strong as the person holding it. With that thought in mind, he held the sword tight and walked straight toward the giant snake monster. The creature rushed at him at wild speed, trying to crush him again. Dojin leaped high into the air, feeling proud as he said the monster should feel honored to get finished by his sword skills. The sword might have looked like trash, but once Dojin started swinging, he moved so fast that it looked like a million shining cuts at once. In only a few strikes, the boss monster was chopped to pieces. It was actually kind of funny. The battle looked super serious, but the snake dropped dead in the background as Dojin's poor sword crumbled to dust from all that power. Lucky for Dojin, he finished off the big guy while the blade just barely held up. With the boss gone, Dojin came up with a clever idea. He took one of the boss snake's giant fangs, figuring it could be turned into a pretty cool short sword later. Happy with his prize, Dojin left the gate. By the time he walked outside, the sky was filled with stars. He ended up spending way more time in that B-rank gate than planned, but beating the boss just made him more determined to get all his strength back one day. At least his old friends weren't there to see him at this not-so-great level. After his hunt, Dojin went to sell his magic stones. In the store, a well-known veteran hero showed up to sell a big bag of magic stones too. The shopkeeper behind the counter treated the hero badly, saying the commission fee was still 40%. Even the hero thought that was unfair and said so, claiming he was a regular here. But just like with Dojin, the shopkeeper started bragging that their shop actually had the lowest rate of all stores, though he admitted the gate center also charged a flat 5% before taxes. To him, this 40% was somehow a good deal, or at least that's what he kept saying. The veteran hero took his cash with only a little grumbling, and even asked if the shopkeeper was okay after seeing the bruises on his face. The guy just made up a story, saying some crazy guy beat up his guards and left his face looking like that. The veteran hero suggested it was his own fault for hiring weak guards at a C-rank store, pointing out that rank doesn't always tell the true story. Skills matter way more. Heroes who fight in the field are nothing like security guards who just sit around all day. The ranking system is there for a reason, but the experienced hero knew there was a big difference in strength between people at the same rank. Still, the shopkeeper clearly didn't care about the lecture and just wanted the man to leave. The veteran hero said his goodbyes, even offering to help if the shopkeeper ever needed anything. Just as the veteran hero was leaving, Dojin walked in, cold and silent as ever. The shopkeeper freaked out, pointing right at him and shouting that he was the psychopath who had beat him up and made the shop a mess. The veteran hero turned to look at Dojin, instantly curious. He noticed Dojin was pretty lean but strong-looking, and after hearing all the fuss, he wondered if Dojin really was the guy who fought off those guards. Ready for a fight, he asked if Dojin was the troublemaker everyone was talking about. One thing about the veteran hero, he didn't get annoyed just because of a rumor. He actually believed it was wrong for any hero to push around regular people with their powers, even if he didn't know the whole story yet. The shopkeeper enjoyed stirring up trouble too, knowing the veteran hero had a lot of respect in their world and could easily get Dojin's name out to people if things turned ugly. But Dojin was ready for any drama. He just told the boomer hero to leave him alone, which only made the man angrier. Dojin then asked if the veteran hero was planning to fight over revenge, which made the guy reconsider. With all his experience, the veteran hero knew fighting between heroes was even more dangerous than fighting monsters. Someone usually ended up seriously hurt or dead. Remembering this, he backed off, cooling down and leaving without making a scene. Well, at least he was smart enough. That left the shopkeeper speechless and kind of thrown off by how quickly things settled down. Now it was Dojin's turn to face the shopkeeper, who seemed nervous. Before the guy could whine, Dojin tossed a heavy bag of magic stones on the counter, all high-level ones too. This had the shopkeeper sweating, staring at the loot and wondering who the heck this cold, mysterious guy really was. After crunching the numbers, the total turned out to be a fat 150 million won. That sounded like a lot, but to Dojin, it felt almost too small for the amount of hard work he put in today. When the shopkeeper started talking about the commission, Dojin gave him a scary look, but then remembered their new deal was only 1%. Feeling better, he relaxed and told the guy to just finish up and hand over the rest of his cash. Inside his head, the shopkeeper was so mad he wanted to punch Dojin for having the guts to ask for so much money. But of course, that was just in his dreams. In reality, there was no way he could actually do that. Trying to keep things by the book, the shopkeeper explained that for an amount this big, he needed upper management's approval. Dojin didn't want to waste any time, and told him to get the approval right now. The shopkeeper quickly called his boss, speaking in a low, nervous voice about the huge payout. Before the deal finished, Dojin snatched the phone away and talked straight to the boss himself, telling him to hurry up and approve the cash. The boss agreed but wanted the phone back in his worker's hand. Instead, Dojin, whether by accident or on purpose, tossed the phone so hard it smashed into the wall. The appraiser stared at his broken phone in shock as Dojin calmly told him to get the money ready now. So, the shopkeeper found himself stuffing bags with piles of cash for Dojin. By the end, he was left totally defeated after being pushed around and ordered like that. Maybe you'd feel sorry for him, but honestly, this guy is always scamming heroes by taking almost half their money when they risk their lives fighting monsters, so he isn't really the good guy here. About 10 minutes later, the boss rushed into the store, looking super angry that his worker wasn't answering the phone. It was pretty funny, because just then, the shopkeeper gave up on everything and quit right on the spot. The boss looked around and noticed his worker's phone smashed, quickly realizing what had happened. He pulled out his own phone and made a call to someone named Juyan, asking her to come right away. Juyan was a famous young hero with really cool purplish-pink hair. She was so popular that people crowded around her, shouting her name and treating her like a superstar when she showed up. Wearing a stylish outfit, she turned everyone's heads. The truth is, she was the niece of the boss, and she walked in, smiled at the shopkeeper, and calmly said she was there as her uncle asked, to deal with a crazy hero causing trouble. Sitting down, this cool S-rank hero waited to find out what happened. Meanwhile, Dojin was outside, sitting under the sun and meditating. Wow, what the fuck, our boy is so ripped like John Cena. Even though Dojin had spent a whole day hunting, he wasn't exactly happy with his rewards. He started to worry about how long it would take to get strong enough to clear the most dangerous gates by himself. That meant he needed to train and get his old strength back. It was time for a training arc, I guess. But Dojin's big problem in this new world was the mana. Compared to his home world, the mana in this place was super weak. That meant no matter how hard he trained, it would take at least 3 years before he got close to his old power. He could get better equipment, but even the cheapest sword cost millions, so he didn't want to waste money. Suddenly, Dojin felt a scary chill. He sensed something very dangerous closing in. His eyes quickly found Yuna, and he grabbed her, telling everyone to get inside right away. Once indoors, he slammed the door and locked everything. Grandma shouted, scared and demanding to know what was happening. The house shook with a loud boom, and Grandma panicked, thinking it was an earthquake, while little Yuna looked terrified. But Dojin knew the truth. This was not some earthquake, something else was happening. He can feel it, this kind of sensation. He felt the wild, sharp energy outside, and voila, a rift had appeared, and it opened right over their home. This author doesn't have enough creativity. Dojin then told his family to stay inside and not come out, warning them how dangerous the outside world was at that moment. Then, faster than anyone could react, he ran to the rift's entrance. The last thing he heard was his grandma and Yuna screaming his name as he rushed in. At the same time, the Soul Hero Association was thrown into crisis mode by the sudden appearance of a rift right at the center of Mappo. It had been 63 days since the last one showed up. Knowing the White Lion Guild was closest, the manager ordered staff to warn them and contact all nearby heroes immediately. When they saw the exact location was a regular house, it became clear this was a problem. If a normal person entered a rift, they'd probably never come back out, and the rift would lock behind them. If that person died, then 10 days later, a giant wave of monsters would break out and destroy the city. The manager asked who went inside the rift. He found out it was Dojin, the same boy who lived at the house. His grandma said he only entered to keep his family safe. The association believed Dojin wasn't even a hero, which made things look worse. A regular person almost never survived a rift. The entire staff felt helpless and scared. There was nothing they could do but wait and hope for a miracle. In the next scene, we find Dojin's stepmother, Chairman Haiju, totally angry as she hears about Dojin's new awakening. She can't believe the news. Her assistant tells her that even though Dojin hasn't signed up with the Hero Association yet, they checked and confirmed that he really did awaken after his last gate fight. This just makes her more upset, because Cheol Wu was supposed to finish Dojin off, not help him awaken. She slams her fist on the table and yells at Manager Lee, asking why they can't ever do things right. She's also mad they took money but failed their job. She then tells him to warn Cheol-woo. If he doesn't kill Dojin with his own hands, then he'll owe her 10 times more than what she paid. Manager Lee surprises her by saying they probably won't need Cheol-woo, because there's a new rift right on top of Dojin's house. The news that Dojin stepped into the rift makes Chairman Heeju break into a happy smile, believing there's no way he'll survive. She finally calms down and tells the assistant to just wait and watch what happens next. Meanwhile, Dojin has just arrived in the rift. The world inside this rift is a forest, the very same one from his younger days as the sword god. Every tree and path feels just like how he remembered from back then. This special place is called the Forest of Patasua, and the energy, or mana, there is thick and pure. He can even see the Great World Tree, the heart of everything, glowing with power. In his old world, when that tree was burned down, everything collapsed. The downfall of the tree is the one that starts the doom. But in this rift, the tree is still standing proud and alive. Dojin can't figure out why things are like this here, but what he does know is that he finally has the chance to fill himself up with more powerful mana than anywhere else. He then sits down beneath the tree and meditates, letting his breathing match the flow of mana. For more than 3 days, he does nothing but sit, forgotten hunger, thirst, and everything else. 10 days go by like this, until he's disturbed on the 10th night. A group of weird monsters called Volsina come crawling up. These creatures look like aliens, and were the same ones who burned the world tree in the past. But this time, Dojin is ready to protect it and keep the tragedy away. The Volsina charge, and Dojin thinks it's too bad he doesn't have a water sword, which would make them easy to beat. But now, filled with so much mana, he realizes he doesn't need a weapon at all. His own hands are enough. As a Volsina lunges, Dojin does something called a mana release. Not exactly telekinesis, but a wave of power that blasts the first creature away. The next monster freezes in shock at how Dojin just flexed that much energy. He smiles, remembering he hasn't used this kind of move in ages because he was running low on mana before. The monsters aren't finished. They open their mouths wide and shoot streaks of hot energy at Dojin. But with his new power, he doesn't panic. His body glows with protective mana, blocking their blasts as he walks forward like it's nothing. Smiling to himself, Dojin thinks he's finally doing what he couldn't in the past, saving the world tree, and that now he can really have some fun. A couple of monsters try to attack again with their energy bombs, but Dojin just catches 2 by their heads, slamming their mouths shut. Their own power bounces back, blowing up inside them and leaving nothing but burning headless bodies. After they fall, Dojin picks up 2 glowing mana stones dropped by the monsters. Dojin is thrilled. He just unlocked a special new item, the Eternal Ember, a glowing golden seed or coin. Laughing, he keeps slapping monsters around, collecting a big load of mana stones as the one-sided fight goes on. He feels like he's won the jackpot with every monster dropping something good. When all the Volsina are finished, Dojin grabs the Eternal Ember. Just by holding it, he feels a surge of power. Crushing the ember in his hand, flames burst around him. It's like watching Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen play with his energy. Normally, the best thing would be to keep absorbing mana from the Great Tree. But Dojin's body has already hit its limit now. The other way to get more power is to use the Eternal Ember, which changes his energy into pure fire mana. He accepts this, and his body fills with new, burning strength. This step was never needed in his old life, so he never cared about the embers before. This ember was supposed to be trash. But now, this trash has become a treasure for him. With lots of these treasures, he sits down and starts to absorb as many as he can, even if it takes 10 minutes for just one. It's his time to finally power up for real. The sudden appearance of the rift around Dojin's house brought in a huge crowd. Reporters and news vans filled the street, while agents and workers from the Hero Association stood their ground, trying to keep everyone away. Agent Seonggu, a serious guy who kind of looked like Yoonho from Solo Leveling, but with way better hair, was super angry. To him, the person who went into the rift, Dojin, was just being reckless. Seonggu thought it was dumb for one person to jump in alone and risk turning the place into a monster hot zone if he died inside. He ranted about how if Dojin wanted to disappear, he should have done it some normal way instead of endangering the entire city. Meanwhile, Agent Hyunwoo, Dojin's blue-haired look-alike, was more understanding. He thought anyone would risk going into a rift if it meant saving their little sister. Still, Seonggu didn't buy it. He insisted Dojin was just greedy and didn't think about what would happen if he failed. Hyunwoo double-checked with Gilma, their boss, who said to keep calm and stick to the rules. But honestly, nobody had seen this many rifts popping up all over the world. The US, China, Switzerland, Turkey, and even the UK had the same trouble. Some countries stayed cool, but in South Korea, things could go bad fast, and Seonggu blamed it all on Dojin. He was so mad, he was praying for the rift to spit Dojin back out any second. Speaking of that crazy giant purple gate, it had been 28 days since it blasted open. and Dojin had spent the same amount of time inside. Now, the Hero Association had to treat it like a level 1 emergency. No one had revealed Dojin's real identity to the news yet. Instead, everyone just called him Ordinary Person S to protect his privacy. Other people had their own theories about who went inside the rift. Chairman Huang, the sneaky boss of the money-lending group, figured it out almost instantly and confirmed through his assistant that it was Dojin. Huang, with his second-in-command, Manager Kim, wondered if Dojin would actually make it out alive. Manager Kim said most regular people only had a 1% chance of surviving a rift like this. Chairman Huang found it hilarious, remembering how that ordinary guy used to beat up his own men without breaking a sweat. Everyone else in the world really had no idea who they were talking about. Chairman Huang then asked about the chances for an awakened hero. His assistant said it all depended on the hero's level and experience, and there was no way to say for sure. Even Huang admitted that surviving inside a rift was a whole different game than just fighting or running. Deep down, Huang had no plans to protect Dojin's family for real. He was thinking about selling their organs if Dojin didn't return, or make him pay huge debt if he did. This guy seriously couldn't get any slimier. Who wanna slap him with me? Back inside the rift, Dojin was really in his zone. He kept training under the world tree, with his body now buzzing with fire mana. He lost track of time. All he did was absorb hundreds of firestones and build up so much mana power that he could bend it any way he wanted. His fire resistance went way up too. Thinking about it, he realized that in fire magic alone, he might even be stronger than his old self back in his first world. Before leaving, he embraced the world tree for the last time, thanking it for saving him before and letting him grow stronger now. He crafted a little bag out of vines to store all the mana stones he'd collected, feeling sad that this might be the last time he'd ever see the beautiful tree. Even if he never saw it again, he promised in his heart to protect it forever if it was ever in danger. That night, Dojin finally walked out of the rift. There were no crowds, and he guessed everyone pretty much thought he'd died, and were probably waiting for a monster wave to burst out any minute. Even so, he felt someone strong nearby and decided to check it out. Jumping into action, he chased after the powerful presence. In a short flash, Dojin ran into the two agents from before. Agent Seonggu, still angry and ready to fight, and Agent Hyunwoo, more chill. Now Dojin knew from their uniforms that they were from the association, and that meant if they caught him, things could get really complicated. Not wanting trouble, Dojin quickly spun a ball of fire in his hand and flung it across the roof. The fireball soared and exploded on another building, creating a huge boom that was sure to get everyone's attention. As soon as they heard the huge crashing sound, Agent Hyunwoo and Agent Seonggu jumped into action. They saw the fire and ran straight towards it, finding a group of people standing around in shock. Agent Seonggu shouted, trying to figure out what the heck was happening. Meanwhile, Dojin stood off to the side, happy with how well his flame powers worked. He thought about his old friend Tusk, the strongest fire mage he ever knew, and wondered if Tusk would be proud to see his new tricks. Then, Agent Hyunwoo got a weird feeling. He checked the rift nearby and noticed it was starting to freak out. Out of nowhere, right in front of their eyes, the rift faded away and vanished into thin air. Both agents rushed over to check it out, but by the time they got there, the connection to their world was already gone. Dojin, on the other hand, just kept moving to his next target, not worried about getting caught at all. The next morning, the whole country woke up to the news. The rift in Mappa was finally gone, lasting 29 days before disappearing without warning. The Hero Association had expected a huge monster wave, but nothing happened. They were left scratching their heads, with no idea why the rift had disappeared or what caused the small fire in the junkyard at the same time. Most people thought Dojin was dead and blamed him for the chaos. In reality, Dojin was hiding nearby, listening to all their wild guesses. He saw that some people actually felt sorry for the kid who died, saving others. Even so, he was secretly crushed because now the rift was closed, and he couldn't see the world tree again. He promised he'd protect the tree, but now he had to let go. There were still other things he could protect, so he set off to HCS Capital. Inside HCS Capital, the crooks were busy partying. They thought Dojin was finally gone for good, and some even started plotting to take his little sister and grandma for themselves. The men laughed and talked like creeps, until all of a sudden, a cold, familiar voice called for their boss. The story split away to Chairman Huang himself, humming as he got ready for the day. His assistant went over his schedule. Besides lunch with the CEO, he had enough free time to party all night at Madame Kang's club. The guy was full of himself, not expecting any issues. That changed quickly when he climbed the stairs and found the place wrecked. His own thugs were laying around beaten, the walls splattered with blood. And there, waiting for him, was the one person he thought was dead, Dojin. Before Huang could react, Dojin grabbed him and smashed him to the floor, ordering him to crawl over like a dog. Huang shook with fear as Dojin sat down in the big boss chair. Dojin gave the order again, staring Huang down until finally, the man actually crawled on his hands and knees. No mercy. Dojin told him to bark like a dog, loud enough for everyone to hear. Huang whined in front of the crowd, his pride shattered to nothing. But Dojin wasn't finished. He made him bark again and again until he seemed less like a boss and more like an animal, just like how he always treated people below him. Dojin warned that scumbags like Huang only acted nice on the surface, always waiting for a chance to stab people in the back. He told everyone he'd seen plenty of dirty jerks like Huang in his life. The scared boss begged for his life, promising to do whatever Dojin wanted. Not interested in any more begging, Dojin slapped him so hard that Huang spit blood all over the floor. Turning to Huang's assistant, Manager Kim, Dojin named him the new boss, saying he'd be better than someone like Huang. But Manager Kim was scared and said he couldn't do it. Huang had too many connections, and there'd be big trouble if he took over. Manager Kim dropped to his knees and asked Dojin to spare Huang just this once. Sick of boring talks, Dojin tried something else. He suggested putting Huang in a barrel and dumping him in the ocean, since everyone there already knew dirty tricks like that. Seeing no one wanted to help, Dojin made a new threat. If they didn't handle Huang, he would throw every last one of them into a monster gate as food for the beasts. The men went pale, now realizing Dojin was dead serious and totally in charge. Just the idea of being tossed into a gate where monsters might eat him made Chairman Huang fall apart completely. He begged and promised over and over that he'd never betray Dojin and would always serve him like a loyal dog. This made Dojin stop and think. In the past, he wouldn't have cared and would have finished Huang off in seconds. But now, Dojin noticed he had changed. Maybe he was a little softer than he was before. So instead of killing Huang, he held out his hand to help the guy up. You better believe Chairman Huang was about to start praying all day and every day not to make Dojin angry again. He shook Dojin's hand, swearing he would follow every command from now on. But all of a sudden, he realized his hand was burning. Literally. Even though Dojin was softer, he was still scary. He looked Chairman Huang in the eye and told him this was his last chance ever. Then, with one quick move, Dojin burned the guy's hand so badly it was just a black, messy stump. Ignoring the president's screams and tears, Dojin walked out, just leaving behind one rule. If anyone laid a finger on his family, he'd finish them all. And from that day on, their new job was to keep his family safe. Forever. To the world, Dojin was just a name that disappeared with the rift. But in reality, our guy was just chilling at McDonald's, eating burgers. What a stupid ripoff for the GOAT McDonald. For me, it's always funny to see how manhwa changes the famous brand name into something like this. Now, the government, Hero Association, and news reporters all gave up on the person who entered the rift. They figured he was gone for good. Even if Dojin tried to show his face, people wouldn't believe he survived. If he went public, he'd just get a ton of trouble and annoying attention. For now, Chairman Huang, the once scary boss, was busy helping Dojin find a cool new place to live, so Dojin could relax. He then looked at his little sister and told her they'd be moving to a better neighborhood soon, and Yuna was thrilled. She could finally go to kindergarten and join elementary school with the other kids soon. But when school was brought up, Yuna suddenly got quiet and sad. That freaked Dojin out, since fighting monsters was easier than comforting a little girl's feelings. Yuna admitted she was being teased for being an orphan. That hit Dojin hard in the heart. He gently told her that she never had to talk to mean kids like that ever again. That's okay if she skips kindergarten. With that, Yuna smiled, happy to know the bullying days were over. Secretly, Dojin was planning to send her to a fancy private school, where no one would dare say a word against her. Last night, Dojin learned Manager Kim had hidden his grandma and sister in a motel while he was stuck in the rift. Manager Kim was almost falling over himself trying to say sorry. He explained it was the safest place he could find since the motel belonged to their company. Dojin was too tired for drama, so he just walked inside. As soon as Yuna saw him, she ran up for a big hug, and Grandma grabbed his hand, crying tears of joy. For a second, the tough warrior was shocked, but he soon relaxed and let himself enjoy his family's warm hugs for the first time in forever. Back to today, Yuna asked what it was like being a hero. When Dojin asked if she liked having a hero brother, but Yuna just shook her head. She said it looked cool, but heroes were always in danger, sometimes even dying, and all she wanted was for her brother to stay home with Grandma and her for a long, long time. This was new for Dojin. In his old life, he'd ended up as the last human alive, always fighting, always losing people. But in this world, he realized he was getting a second shot at happiness. Now, he had something he never expected, someone to care about him. The idea of maybe living a peaceful, quiet life, filled with love, started to sound pretty nice to him. While he was feeling all happy inside, Korea's Hero Association office was in chaos. Director Taewang, the top guy in the association and World Hero Federation, was tired and worried about the rift. The whole staff had checked out the ruins and still had no answers. The director hated not knowing what was going on. A rift that could just pop out of nowhere, then disappear just as quickly, freaked him out. His assistant said it might have been easier for everyone if a monster wave had actually happened. At least then, they'd know what to expect. Director Tae Wang quickly shut that down, warned her to be careful with her words, saying he was thankful at least no one got hurt. Director Tae Wang was known as one of the top 100 heroes in the whole world. If he ever wanted to, he could run for president and probably win. He was so powerful and respected, he had the influence to shake up giant companies. But he didn't care about power or money. All he cared about was keeping his people safe, and everyone knew it. That's why he was such a real hero. He wanted the investigation around the rift to be slow and careful, making sure no detail was missed. He planned to buy all the houses in the neighborhood for more than market price, just to make things right for the people who had to move because of the rift. He then checked the news from his laptop. The news said that other rifts were popping up in countries all over the world. He felt something felt off. His assistant stated that the United States and China were getting things under control. Director Tae Wang took a big breath, but the UK wasn't so lucky. Their heroes just weren't strong enough in his eyes. Suddenly, his laptop going wild, the alarm popped out stating the British squad failed to close their rift. And now, a dangerous monster wave was running wild in the United Kingdom. Back in the busy city, Dojin moved through the crowds like any regular person. As expected of our boy, he doesn't give a fuck for anything except his family. His destination today was his favorite store in the hero complex. Of course, to see the stupid-looking face shopkeeper. When he walked inside, the cashier greeted him, but that greeting froze on his lips the moment he saw who it was. The cashier looked terrified of Dojin, almost shaking in his shoes. Thankfully, the store manager was there today, so the scared worker wouldn't have to deal with this nightmare customer alone. The manager put down his newspaper and gave Dojin a sharp look. He sounded calm but was clearly annoyed. This was the guy who always bullied his cashier into buying low-quality crystals. Dojin, totally chill, took off his backpack and tossed it onto the counter. Honestly, it was a good thing the manager was here, because he wanted this sale to go fast. The manager didn't bother to hide that he wasn't interested, expecting some cheap junk in the bag. He didn't want to waste time and acted like Dojin should just leave. Dojin warned him, if the manager blew him off, he would regret it. Still, the manager kept waving him away without even checking the bag, making it clear it was his last warning. At that, Dojin kicked the bag so it spilled open, and the shimmering rocks rolled out onto the tiles. Right away, both the cashier and the manager saw that these weren't any normal stones. The bag was full of heroes' magic crystals, super rare treasures worth a fortune. Dojin knew exactly how valuable they were. These were the real deal. There was a crazy story behind them too. A famous Mexican drug boss named Querzaman used these crystals to make a new kind of drug. One night, there was a lab accident, and he ended up turning into a powerful hero thanks to the crystals. After that, heroes' magic crystals became priceless. Heroes wanted them for awakening and pure mana power. Now, everyone wanted these legendary stones, but barely anyone could ever get them. As a power move, Dojin told them to go ahead and pack his stuff back up. He acted like he was leaving, but the manager changed his tune real fast. He became a clown. He stopped acting tough and rushed over, practically dragging Dojin to a fancy VIP seat and sending for drinks while the cashier cleaned and checked every crystal. Dojin secretly loved how fast the situation flipped. One minute they wanted to kick him out, and the next he was sipping iced tea like a king. He started the sale with a bold offer, full price and only a 0.5% commission. As soon as the manager hesitated, Dojin threatened to walk. Last time, he'd taken a 1% fee, but today he dropped it even more, just because he felt annoyed. The manager tried apologizing and explaining, but Dojin was done listening. Either they took his deal or he would go somewhere else. Behind the counter, the cashier was cursing Dojin in his mind, thinking he was the most annoying customer in history. Still, the manager tried to talk business, giving a big speech about market prices. Dojin didn't have time for this, so he finished his drink and stood up, ready to go. Now, panicking, the manager started bargaining. First 9%, then 8%, and on down to 7, 6, and 5. Those low rates meant the shop would barely make any money. When the manager was almost in tears, Dojin finally agreed to a 1% commission out of respect. Deep inside, the manager wanted to scream, but he just couldn't let go of such rare magic crystals. The next thing Dojin said almost made the manager lose it with excitement. Dojin told him that, besides the bag he brought today, he had 7 more bags stuffed with these amazing magic crystals. Hearing that, the manager didn't waste a second. He printed out the contract, and they both signed it fast. In just a few minutes, Dojin's bank account exploded with 67 billion won, close to $48 million. With that kind of money, His dream house worth 110 billion won seemed a lot closer. The only catch was that getting more high-grade magic crystals from regular gates would take forever. He figured if he could move through rift zones easily, he'd be rich in no time, like some hardcore treasure farmer. While Dojin checked his phone, he saw a news alert sent out to everyone. It said there was now a real monster wave breaking out in southern England, and no one was allowed to travel to the UK. Reading this, Dojin totally lost patience with the shop manager and his drama. In his old life, it wouldn't have mattered what country or which group was in trouble. He might have gone and fixed the rift problem himself. But not now. These days, Dojin just wanted to enjoy his own life. Tonight, Dojin was in charge of dinner, and he picked out a fancy place with super expensive meat. Little Yuna's eyes just about popped out at the sight of pork and beef sizzling on the grill. Plates of delicious food kept coming. Ribeye, ribs, sirloin, you name it. But Grandma got worried when she saw the prices. 250,000 won for just 100 grams was insane. She asked if they could really afford all this. But Dojin quickly calmed her down. After selling his magic crystals, they could eat like kings, and it wouldn't even scratch his bank account at all. Yuna took her first bite and instantly fell in love with the taste of super fancy beef. Dojin just kept piling meat on the grill. Grandma was stunned, wondering how the three of them could ever finish this much food. But Yuna helped get Grandma to try it. One taste, and Grandma's worries melted away. She just smiled happily and kept eating. The little family laughed and enjoyed the incredible meal together. I really want to taste a top-tier BBQ beef from Korea. But while they feasted, a stunning young woman walked into the restaurant. Every head in the place spun around as she walked by. She made her way straight to Dojin's table and asked if she could talk for a second. But Dojun didn't like being interrupted during family time. He just told her she'd have to wait until the meal was done. The woman, Juyan, took out her business card, hoping he'd change his mind after seeing who she was. But he ignored her, focusing on grilling meat. This reaction shocked her. She is the one and only Juyan, and he dared to ignore her? Feeling lost, Juyan ended up waiting in the front room. Everyone else stared. After all, she was famous. She was one of the country's top-rank heroes, and easy to spot in any top 10 list of beautiful heroes. All around her, people whispered, wondering who could make even Juyan wait. Juyan remembered their short talk earlier. She knew Dojin had only started entering gates 2 months ago. Now rumors said he'd awakened as a hero, died in the Big Mappo rift, but somehow here he was, alive and eating dinner. None of it added up. She could tell there was something strange about this young guy, especially how his sharp eyes gave her chills. He was probably an S-rank hunter by now. But again, it doesn't make sense. Even super-rich heroes had never skyrocketed to S-rank so fast in just 2 months. If Dojin really had some crazy hidden power, she wanted to find out what it was. Finally, after every plate was empty and all three were stuffed and smiling, the family got up to leave. Juyan moved over to speak with Dojin. But right then, another person strolled into the restaurant like he owned the place. Dojin's face turned hard when he saw him. It was Cheol Woo, the creepy guy who doomed Dojin to a gate before, and clearly didn't expect to see him walking around. He asked how the hell Dojin crawled out from the gate he prepared before. He comes to Dojin and asks if he is some kind of cockroach because it's hard to kill him. Even Juyan seemed to know Cheol Woo was a fucking trouble with just one look. The air in the restaurant got thick with tension. Cheol Woo sneered and mocked him, but Dojin paid him no mind. Instead, Dojin called Juyan over and asked her to get his family a taxi and make sure they got home safely. He told her he had some business to settle with a certain mutt. Thankfully, Juyan was smart. She nodded, took Grandma and Yuna outside, and waited as the taxi drove away, though everyone could see they were worried. As soon as Dojin family left in the taxi, the restaurant filled with a loud, sharp slap. With his grandma and little sister safe, Dojin could finally drop his nice guy act and show Cheol Woo who the real boss is. He moved so fast that Cheol Woo didn't even see it coming. He just felt his face sting like crazy. Cheol Woo got super embarrassed and tried to fight back. A server rushed over, scared that heroes would start wrecking the whole place, but instead of calming down, things got even rougher. Luckily, no one else got badly hurt, and Dojin told everyone to clear out for their own safety. Cheol Woo was super easy to mess with. He was all muscle and no brain, and his bad attitude earned him another solid punch right in the head. Deep down, Dojin hated this guy to his guts. Cheol Woo was the one who trapped the real Dojin in a gate, leaving him to die. Even though it hadn't happened to him personally, he still felt the anger and wanted to deal with that motherfucker. Sneering, Cheol Woo bragged about Dojin's evil stepmother being behind it all. That was music to Dojin's ears. If this dummy was spilling secrets so easily, it was time to grab some proof. He took out his phone, hit record, and aimed it right at Cheol Woo, hoping to get a confession on tape. Cheol Woo, getting angrier, cursed at Dojin's mom and unleashed another wild attack. saying he'd finish the job right here and now. But Cheolwoo's punches didn't stand a chance. Dojin blocked them with a simple move. It felt like punching a trampoline. Cheolwoo just bounced off and lost his balance. He'd never fought anyone like this before, and it drove him nuts. Dojin didn't stop, following Cheolwoo around like a hunter, knocking him silly with every hit. Cracking sounds rang out in the empty restaurant. The server from before grabbed her phone in a panic, trying to call the police, but Juyeon stepped in, gently taking the phone and smiling. She promised to handle things, and the server, just relieved, trusted her. While all this was happening, Cheolwoo got slapped, punched, and beat down so hard he didn't stand a chance. This is really enjoyable to me. Juyeon, watching, knew that Cheolwoo was a B-rank hero. Normally, he would have been a tough fight for almost anyone, but Dojin was making it look easy, like he was on a whole different level. She was sure this time Dojin is more than a rank. Even so, it seemed too easy. Juyeon finally spoke up, asking Dojin to stop before Cheolwoo ended up dead. Dojin listened, dropped Cheolwoo's limp body, and wiped his hands clean. Curious, Juyeon asked how much he knew about Cheolwoo. Dojin didn't know everything, but he knew enough to get payback. She warned him that Cheolwoo was connected to Kang Yongpyo, an S-rank hero and a very dangerous man. Dojin just shrugged. It wasn't news to him, and he wasn't worried at all. Juyeon thought he was absolutely wild. Nobody else would just ignore a threat from an S-ranker. She explained that Yongpyo protected his crazy cousin, Cheolwoo, and would want revenge for this beating. Like he fucking care, Dojin said again that didn't care. He was more annoyed that Juyeon knew so much about his business. Even after punching Cheolwoo away, now this new girl suddenly annoys him so much. They stared each other down, but Juyeon was just as strong-minded as Dojin. She wasn't scared. Trying to move on from the awkward moment, she apologized for stopping by and explained her real reason for coming. Her uncle wanted her to check out Dojin after hearing about the sack of Hero's magic crystals he sold. She really wanted to buy the rest, and said she'd pay at the highest rate, no matter the price. Dojin said it wouldn't be cheap, since he had many valuable treasures. She wasn't bothered, boasting about how much money S-rank heroes really had. In the end, Dojin agreed, but only if she'd do a small favor for him. For a big shot like Juyeon, it shouldn't be a problem. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the city, the sound of smashing bottles echoed. Chairman Heju, Dojin's evil stepmother, was having a fit. All her people told her Dojin was dead for sure. Now she hears he survived that crazy rift and just beat up Cheolwoo like it was nothing. Her right-hand man was sweating bullets, but it wasn't really his fault. Even the top Hero Association folks thought Dojin was gone for good. Chairman Heju didn't care about excuses though. She wanted action. And now, she knew Dojin must have figured out who tried to have him killed. As soon as she found out she could be caught, she started to get really nervous. She was not scared of Dojin himself, but she freaked out when she imagined her father or husband learning all about her dirty deals. She thought she could cover everything up if it stayed quiet. But if the story got out to the news, her company's stock could crash hard. She ordered Manager Lee to handle the press and stop any bad rumors. If they messed up, big partners like T Group and W Group would pull out their money and ads. She wanted to make sure the police working the case were on her side too. Luckily, her people had already started greasing the right palms, and knowing they were working gave her a little relief. Manager Lee quietly pointed out that no matter how good they were at hiding stuff, this wasn't really fixing anything. They needed a real solution. Manager Lee mentioned that the real boss, Yongpyo, might be the answer. He was Cheolwoo's cousin, and a scary, high-level S-rank hero. Even Chairman Heju knew about him. Everybody in the hero world saw Cheolwoo as trash, but everyone was also aware of his close relationship with his cousin, Hunter Kang Yongpyo. Truth was, Cheolwoo just carried out his cousin's dirty work and was nothing but a puppet. If Cheolwoo got busted by the police and shamed in the news, it would be bad for Yongpyo too. Actually, word had it Yongpyo was already on the move to stop the drama from blowing up. After thinking it over, Chairman Heiju decided she needed to meet Kang Yongpyo fast. And on top of that, she wanted to handle Chairman Huang from HCS Capital, who had switched sides to help Dojin's family. For that, she demanded someone call a prosecutor in less than a minute. Anybody who betrayed her group had to pay in full. The next day, a bunch of heroes went into one of Korea's 37 rift zones. Out of all those zones, only 5 were being turned into safe raid gates. The rest could only be entered if the heroes were in an official group and had scheduled times. Today, Juyeon herself was leading a squad. As an S-ranker, she could go in and out of almost any gate whenever she wanted. In this group, loaded with fancy gear and sharp weapons, one guy stood out, a young man wearing a raggedy old hoodie. Who else if it's not our boy Dojin? The other was the one she had picked to tag along. They are from Cleome Guild, an A-rank squad, supposedly for helping her hunt today. One girl, Jong In-ju in that guild, was excited to tag along with a real S rank, since that almost never happened. Juyeon just laughed it off and told them she wanted to have fun and loosen up. Secretly, she arranged things so Dojin could join. He needed to get into the hard rift zone, and that was the ticket. Dojin only agreed to sell the rest of his hero magic crystals to Juyeon if she let him enter the high-level rift. He just wanted to make more cash by fighting strong monsters and grabbing treasure other people couldn't reach. Sure, rift zones were full of danger, but for a guy like him, it was worth it. Juyeon didn't mind. She was all about getting those crystals. Soon, the group walked through a gloomy tunnel before stepping out into a bright forest. Guildmaster Inju couldn't stop wondering about the mysterious guy following their party. She kept poking Juyeon, fishing for the real story. Everyone thought Dojin might be Juyeon's secret boyfriend, since nobody had ever seen the queen owe someone a favor before. Juyeon finally told a half-truth, admitting she owed him, but no one bought it completely. No one expected to hear an S-rank hero had a mysterious debt, either. While the group gossiped, a giant shadow suddenly blocked out the sun. Everyone stopped and looked up. There it was. A massive cockatrice flying overhead. The Cleom Guild snapped into action, pulling out weapons and taking battle stances. As the S-rank leader, Juyeon took charge, shouting out who was on defense and who should go for the legs. Just as everyone settled into their spots, Dojin shocked the whole party by suddenly bolting forward on his own. He jumped higher and faster than anyone could believe, closing the distance to the beast in a heartbeat. He totally ignored any team plans and went solo against the bird. The Cleom Guild heroes just stood with their jaws hanging open. Nobody had ever moved like that. As he flew up with pure fire energy swirling around him, he threw a punch straight for the cockatrice. The big bird couldn't even react. It just took a hard hit from Dojin straight to the beak. Next thing everyone knew, the monster dropped from the sky, and Dojin landed beside it, looking like a boss, not even tired. The Cleom Guild members and Juyeon didn't even know what to say. One guy was shocked to see a random guy one-punch a high-level monster to kill it. Is this Saitama reborn or what? They just watched as Dojun finished the job in style, stomping the monster's head again and again until it was dead for real. That was insane, and now Inju just couldn't wrap her head around it. Who was that guy? When she asked Juyeon, the S-ranker just shrugged, not truly knowing herself. She only told Inju that Dojin was someone really strong, but even calling him strong sounded like an insult. Yet Inju didn't buy it. She stated, who in the world can one-hit that kind of monster in one hit? What Dojin did to that cockatrice was something almost nobody in the hero world could pull off. Juyeon tried to play it down by mentioning her own sister, who was also a monster among heroes, but Inju still yelled, telling her she'd gone crazy after seeing how strong Dojin was. It's basically impossible for any hunter to kill the monster the way Dojin did. While Juyeon was thinking about how scary Dojin was and who the fuck he is, she decided to change plans on the spot. She told Inju the rest of the group should stay close to the gate while she and Dojin went further in to hunt. Juyeon walked over as Dojin sliced up the cockatrice for loot, but before she could even talk, he made it clear no one could share the rewards unless they helped out. That was fine by Juyeon. She didn't care about any extra crystals today. Instead, she suggested they head deeper and face something even bigger. When he smiled and agreed, she could tell he was down to hunt stronger monsters and get mad loot. Juyeon totally knew every inch of this rift, so she took the lead and asked Dojin to stick close. Suddenly, she bolted forward at superhero speed, disappearing into the distance. Dojin waited, slung his bag over his shoulder, and then blasted off after her. His takeoff was so strong it almost knocked the Cleom Guild off their feet. If Juyeon moved like a bullet, Dojin was straight up lightning. With the powerhouses gone, the remaining heroes looked at Inju, all feeling a little lame. It was impossible to follow them, so they just had to hunt monsters around the edge. Regular people might call them A-rank heroes, but compared to Juyeon and Dojin, they felt like extras. They had to accept they were just the sidekicks today, not the stars. Deeper inside the woods, Juyeon ran as fast as she could, pausing every so often to check if Dojin was nearby. She thought maybe she'd gone too hard, maybe left him in her dust. Just when she considered slowing down, Dojin suddenly appeared right next to her, asking if they could pick up the pace. Juyeon was so surprised she almost tripped. She was supposed to be ranked second fastest in the whole country, but clearly, she needed to reconsider the list if Dojin could breeze past her. A few moments later, he even stopped just to tease her for running so slow. While Juyeon stopped to breathe, Dojin looked out and spotted a huge mountain range ahead. When he asked what lay inside, Juyeon's face went serious. This was where the Rift's boss, Kasarion, lived, a giant monster that looked like a dragon mixed with a wyvern, stretching as tall as a building. She told Dojin that it usually took 3 S-rank heroes to even try fighting that beast. But Dojin had one thing on his mind. The Kasarion could drop an imaginary grade magic crystal, one of the rarest treasures in the world. He grinned, not willing to walk away from that kind of prize. Juyan thought it was way too risky, but Dojin didn't care. He was going, even if he had to fight the monster alone. With a catch me if you can, he shot off for the mountains, and Juyan realized she had no choice but to chase after him. Inside the boss's cave, something wild was waiting for them. Juyan was nervous, thinking it would take a miracle to beat the Kasurion. But when she arrived, she found the fight was already over. Kasurion was dead, lying on the floor with Dojin calmly cleaning off his knife. She stared, her mind blank. She'd seen many things, but never a monster like him. If he told another hunter about this, maybe she would be called crazy. She then remembered the famous Park Hae-yeol, a top-level S-rank hero known for hunting Kasurions. The first time he went up against one, he brought a team of 30 A-rank heroes and still barely made it out alive. Everyone else died, and he was lucky to crawl away. But Park Hae-yeol wasn't a quitter. Next time, he teamed up with another S-rank and 100 more A-rank heroes. They used every trick, even tearing the monster's wings so it could not fly. Only a few heroes survived the battle, and the damage was so bad that Park Hae-yeol's guild, Sweet Life, still hadn't bounced back, even 3 years later. It was the kind of story that only made Juyan even more amazed at what Dojin had done, beating the Kasurion alone and making it look easy. Even though Dojin looked like a regular dude, he had just taken down the giant Kasurion monster without breaking a sweat. Juyan could only stare at him, not believing her own eyes. When he caught her staring, he reminded her that she couldn't get any loot just for standing around. She was a bit annoyed, but was more amazed by how strong this average guy was. She knew that if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have thought it was impossible. Only someone truly wild could destroy a Kasurion in one hit. Is he a hidden SSS rank hunter like Sung Jinwoo? But nah, this wasn't some kind of manhwa, right? While Juyan tried to process everything, Dojin just took the magic stone from the boss monster and seemed done with the whole thing. He said he didn't need an escort anymore and could handle things by himself. He also left most of the other loot, like the monster's sharp claws and big teeth, like he didn't care at all. If she wanted those things, she could take them. Juyan checked, but then realized she didn't need anything from the dead beast either. That evening, the rest of the Kleum Guild saw Dojin walk up with 3 backpacks full of magic stones. It was a sight none of the A-rank heroes could believe. To gather that much, they would have needed at least 20 hours or even 3 days, and the quality of these was off the charts. The group stared at Juyan, super confused, since she was the one who brought this walking legend along, but even she couldn't explain how he pulled it off. Inju is the most shocked one there. Based on what Juyan said she just witnessed, if it's true that Dojin took down the Kasurion without any notable gear or even a suit, he could easily be Korea's top hero right now. No, maybe even the best in the whole world at his level. Meanwhile, our boy Dojin didn't care even a bit, looking tired but totally chill, returned with even more bags filled with loot. The A-rankers started whispering that no one outside this gate would actually believe what happened today. Dojin seemed almost myth-level strong, and the group was told straight up not to tell anyone about this outside. They didn't really have a choice except to keep quiet. Meanwhile, Juyan walked up to Dojin, and the two started talking. To the others watching, it looked like they were a couple having a cozy chat. The Kleum Guild gossiped, kind of rooting for it, since they seemed perfect for each other. Both crazy strong and definitely out of everyone else's league. But Inju soon realized it wasn't a sweet talk, but an actual argument. It was shocking. Nobody ever argued with someone like Juyan, yet Dojin was doing just that. The most shocking part came when Dojin handed her a backpack and quietly walked off without another word. The guildmaster just stood there, mind blown. When she came to Juyan and asked her what happened, Juyan explained that Dojin wanted to avoid becoming famous overnight. If the world learned he defeated the Kasurion, he would stand out too much, and that sounded like a headache. Instead, he told Juyan to handle the fallout from the hunt and take the blame or credit herself. Both of them fell silent, surprised by how things went. In the end, Juyan found herself even more interested in this mysterious young man. She couldn't get him out of her head. Somewhere else, the story switched over to Park Hae-yeol, the legendary S-rank hero with an epic resume in monster hunting. He was training like a madman, pounding his punching bag while his assistant stood by in awe. Park Hae-yeol led the Sweet Life Guild, though lately they were having a tough time. His assistant tried to encourage him, saying endurance would pay off, and Hae-yeol agreed, convinced his power would shine bright soon and everyone would respect him as the strongest. The assistant even gassed him up, saying Hae-yeol's reputation for slaying Kasurions would go down in the history books and no one could ever beat his crazy achievement, except, of course, unless something absolutely impossible happened. But that caliber thing happens on the same level with Stephen Hawking rising from the grave. Park Hae-yeol got fired up thinking about his own history, ignoring how weak his guild was now compared to the good old days. As tough as things had gotten, At least he could smile knowing he held the title of the guy who annihilated the Caesarian, or so he thought. His loyal servant agreed with a nod, both feeling proud, while they imagined nobody could ever outdo him. Yeah, what a clown. Both of them need to play in the circus for real. While everyone chatted about the country's top heroes, the story suddenly moved to Yongpyo's office. He was reading a report about what happened between Dojin and his cousin Cheol-woo, including all the wild details of the beatdown. Even though Cheol-woo wanted to trap Dojin inside a gate forever, the plan totally backfired. Instead, Dojin awakened new strength and turned the tables. Yongpyo also learned that the one who asked for the hit job was none other than Chairman Haiju, the top boss among Korea's super rich people. At first, Yongpyo thought it was strange that she wanted to target Dojin, but then he found out Dojin was actually her stepson. When Dojin was only 7, he joined the family. But after Chairman Haiju's own child was born, Dojin got tossed out without a second thought. Hearing this made Yongpyo smirk, thinking that even loads of money couldn't keep someone with the same blood from getting the boot if the family didn't want them. When talk turned to payment, Yongpyo heard the job was only worth 3 billion won. To a guy like him, that was nothing. On top of that, Cheol-woo was now half dead after his fight with Dojin, with burns, bruises, and even loss of his eyesight. He wasn't just beaten, his whole future was ruined. Yongpyo actually respected Dojin's savagery a bit, feeling that he might have even gone farther himself and broken a few more bones for good measure. Anyone who thought Yongpyo was only a little bad now saw he was just as twisted as his cousin. I want to slap his face together with Cheol-woo, the goblin-looking guy. As they went over the details, someone brought up that Juyeon had also been at the scene and might have helped Dojin out. That definitely caught Yongpyo's attention. He pushed for more info, wondering what the deal was between Dojin and Juyeon. Sadly, his own assistant was clueless. The police had closed the case with hardly any explanation. Yongpyo hated not knowing, so he went off at his assistant, yelling at him to dig up dirt on their relationship. He was convinced Juyeon and Dojun had some hidden agreement. The assistant ran for his life, determined to find something before he lost his mind completely. After all that, Yongpyo just paced around, smashing things in frustration, thinking about how Chairman Haiju's people would come running to him now that Cheol-woo had failed. He couldn't wait for the call. After all, Chairman Haiju had deep pockets, and money always made things fun for a greedy villain like him. Meanwhile, Dojin was just heading home after a long day of raiding monsters. He actually enjoyed hunting in a rift instead of a regular gate. It was easier to get rich, even if it made everything more complicated with Juyeon. He remembered that she had warned him. If she sell the crystal, people gonna talk about this, and they would definitely come sniffing around, trying to figure out who took down the Caesarian. She'd agreed to keep all the monster loot hidden for now. If Dojin wanted to become famous, she could easily leak the news out, but for now, she'd stash the treasure. Dojin had tossed her the bag so she could handle it all, keeping his own name out of trouble. Still, he realized he'd need a new way into rift zones that didn't involve Juyeon, since being tied to her was asking for headaches. At least he could look forward to a good night's sleep, since Chairman Huang had hooked him up with a fancy new house. Dojin was feeling pretty chill, until he noticed a bunch of unknown shoes outside the door. That usually meant trouble. He walked in and saw a room full of men in suits, who were clearly here for business. Their boss, who looked like a tired version of Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, was staring hard at him. Little Yuna saw her brother and ran over, but Dojin was just plain confused. As it turned out, the group's leader was Prosecutor Park. He quickly explained that because of Dojin's connection to Chairman Huang, Dojin was now under emergency arrest. They said he'd been part of an illegal money lending ring run by the shady CEO of HCS Capital. Just like that, Dojin's wild adventure had turned into one big mess. Dojin decided to play it cool when the police busted him. He let himself get handcuffed and dragged into a boring interrogation room, all because of that crazy loan shark drama with Chairman Huang. While Dojun waited, he overheard an annoying voice outside. It was the prosecutor, and that guy acted like he ran the place. He told someone on the phone that both Dojun and Chairman Huang were being good boys in custody. Bro even thanked the person for helping his daughter study abroad. Like, what a licking someone ass move. The prosecutor then walked in, flapping his mouth about cleaning up society's trash. He said he had always wanted to lock up bad guys since he was a kid. In the end, he thanked Chairman Haiju and made her rest assured. After that nonsense, he slapped a huge stack of paper on the table, acting like he had a mountain of dirt on poor Dojun. He bragged that, with all this evidence, Dojun could go to jail for at least 10 years. Plus, he already got statements from Hwang Chung-sop to make sure everyone involved go to jail for real. Dojun just didn't care. He sat there looking bored. The prosecutor got mad at being ignored and started cursing. Then Dojun hit the real issue. He asked if Chairman Haiju was behind this weak arrest. That question totally shook the prosecutor, but he pretended to not even know the name. Dojun thought these clowns must have already joined forces with Changsop's side. He came here peacefully, but even he knew things could get ugly fast if he took action. The prosecutor tried to act tough, saying people in his job weren't pushovers. But then Dojun released a tiny bit of scary, killing intent his way. Bro, that worked too well. The prosecutor almost lost it in his pants. He could feel Dojun's glare deep in his bones. Embarrassed, he wanted to slap Dojun, but just before things got stupid, an intern called him out of the room for something urgent. Turns out, there was a big problem with Dojun's records. The hero detector in the building said he was just a plain old guy, not a hunter. Even after double-checking, it still called him normal. But how could a normal dude get mixed up in these superhuman disasters? The prosecutor wondered if their info was wrong, but since it all came from Chairman Hiju's company, there's no way it's wrong. Now Dojun looked like a total mystery. The staff didn't even know if they could charge a regular civilian for superhero-level messes. In his head, Dojun was having a good laugh. If he wanted, he could shred these cuffs and tear the whole building apart. If that blew up, well, maybe he could just take Grandma and Yuna and bounce out of the country. Dude had backup plans for days. But before things got wild, Hyun Ju-yeon walked in. She came looking businesslike, ready to help. Thank God our girl comes. Dude literally about to destroy this shitty place. Ju-yeon wanted to know why he was locked up, and Dojun said he really didn't know. She told him it wasn't a great time to cause trouble. She understood exactly what kind of crazy power this guy really had. She didn't want chaos. Honestly, Ju-yeon had no reason to mess with boring laws today, but she truly believed Dojun was innocent. She told him the Hero Association would start an investigation anyway. They would find out about his fake hero license and dig into the Mappo Rift case. But after all of that, Dojun asked what he cared most about, which is his family, so he wondered how they were doing. Ju-yeon felt like she was his personal secretary, but when she saw his intense, I'm serious face, she said they are safe and promised to take care of them. Leaving the room, she decided to act like his lawyer. Dojun said she owed him, and weirdly, she liked being needed for once. She made sure Dojun knew she would fix this, fast. Wow, look at our girl blushing. And man, she wasn't joking. Ju-yeon didn't try to prove Dojun was innocent with boring paperwork. Nope, she just dug up and exposed a bunch of crimes the prosecutor had done. The guy got fired on the spot, and suddenly the investigation was way smoother. Dojun was found innocent of all that loan shark stuff, but he still got in trouble for faking his hero license. Thanks to Ju-yeon, it only ended up being probation. That was actually a huge win. On the way home, while Ju-yeon drove, they heard a crazy news report on the radio. Some scary monster in England was smashing stuff. It looked like a giant mantis, super crazy eyes, jumping around. The second Dojun heard the description, he knew it was a Macassian. Ju-yeon almost crashed the car. Only top heroes should know about that monster. But Dojun just knew everything for no reason. She wondered who this dude really was. Seriously, how could a guy know so much about monsters? Dojun thought that killing a monster would make them drop magic stones, and the stones give monster info. On Earth, technology did the job. In his old world, it was magic. So yeah, he basically knew all monster secrets. He even said Macassians could be stopped with red flower ant juice. To them, that stuff is super poison, but to humans, it's harmless. Just spray the bug, and it's game over. Easy. Ju-yeon got really serious. This dude was just full of mysteries. She tried asking who he really was, but Dojun wouldn't spill any secrets. His mind drifted away, and he started planning how to stop more problems before they began. The best plan, he thought, was to just off director Hiju for good. But meanwhile, Hong Hiju herself was losing her mind. She was freaking out, gnawing her nails, trying to think of new ways to get rid of her husband's tough bastard son. With Ju-yeon involved, Director Hiju felt even more pressured. Her assistant searched everywhere, but no one could figure out the relationship between Dojun and this S-rank hero. If they made the wrong move and pissed off someone like Ju-yeon, not even all their money could save them. Moreover, Director Hiju started freaking out when she saw the prosecution's report about Dojun. The testing machine said Dojun was just a normal civilian. She couldn't believe our bro is not a hero, not an awakener, just a regular dude. She knew that was crap. Based on all the trouble he caused, it was obvious he had some busted-up, scary secret power. Maybe he had some trick for cheating the awakening detectors. No one knew for sure, and that made her rage even harder. She was already bleeding cash from her endless war against Dojun, and all her shady people could give her were silly guesses, no real answers. Beyond pissed, she finally decided to go all in. She called up Kang Yong-pyo, that psycho S-rank rascal, and put a fat stack of cash on the table. At first, she offered 20 billion won to get rid of Dojun, but the price kept going up and up until she was tossing out 30 billion, all just to erase this stubborn problem. Of course, Kang Yong-pyo didn't even blink. That greedy dude demanded double. That's right, he wanted 60 billion won just to deal with one kid. Even his own henchmen were like, bro, isn't that a little much? But Kang Youngpyo was nobody's fool. He could tell director Heju had no cards left to play. To him, her company was printing so much money that losing 60 billion would be like dropping a coin between couch cushions. Plus, with Juyeon now backing Dojun, the whole mess was twice as risky. Kang Youngpyo said, "Fine. If you want him to put his life on the line against another S-rank, someone as crazy as Juyeon, then the price had to be insane too." Kang Youngpyo's underling agreed. He said that Juyeon was no joke, yet the boss suddenly got salty being compared to another S-rank. He started yelling that he could smack Juyeon down in 20 minutes flat. His goon definitely didn't want to get on his boss's bad side, so he quickly changed the subject. Anyway, Kang Youngpyo now had business both with director Heju and the Hero Association. He was also trying to cut a deal before flying to the UK with Korea's hero team, since the country planned to send its top fighters to help the Brits squash their giant bug problem. But the Hero Association was stubborn. They weren't throwing out big paychecks for this one, so to be honest, he didn't want to go. Yet, they made the team up public, so no S-rank heroes could back out without looking like total cowards. So now, in 3 days, South Korea's best heroes, and a few from Japan too, would jump into the battlefield in England. Kang Youngpyo figured there was at least one silver lining. He could meet up with his old pal Takashi from Japan's hero squad. Still, nobody had figured out how to handle those Malaysian bugs. Finding their weakness would turn any hero into the world's #1 superstar overnight. With these, this Youngpyo the clown thought he could be that one hero. Keep dreaming, bro. I bet you're gonna be slapped by our MC in the next minute. Meanwhile, things in England were getting spicy. Those Malaysians were marching towards Cambridge, and even the strongest British heroes were struggling. The Brits put together a solid hero team, old school but pretty badass. The frontliners did their best. Their magic users blasted away at the Malaysians' armor, and sword users went in to finish the job, getting bug juice all over the street. After a tough battle, they took down their first Malaysian. Just to be sure, they chopped off its head. But dang, beating one of those monsters almost totally drained the whole team. And right when the heroes tried to catch their breath, more Malaysians crawled out. The British team got swarmed by a wave of monsters, and even the best of them couldn't hang on. That night, the UK's top heroes went down swinging, but it was a massacre. They tried everything. But with no info about these bugs, they were basically doomed. Now the bugs started crawling towards London. Cambridge fell, and the road to the capital looked wide open. Only 60 kilometers stood between London and a herd of killer mantises. Things looked mega bleak. I can hear 2012 soundtrack coming over from that way, fellas. But just as things hit rock bottom, the sky opened up. Seriously, something bright came raining down on the bugs. This freaky fluid splashed over all of the Malaysians, and boom! The bugs started freaking out. Their bodies seized up as if someone hit the pause button. In just a few seconds, they dropped like dead weight. Up in the sky, a helicopter hovered over the battlefield. Inside, the joint hero team from Korea and Japan watched as the bugs dropped like flies. Every hero on board stared in shock. How was this easy solution even possible? It was all because of Juyeon's idea. She used red flower ant sap, something bugs hated but people could touch safely. The Malaysians turned into paralyzed, useless chunks in no time. On the copter, Kang Youngpyo watched Juyeon with suspicion. He didn't buy that she just guessed the trick. Still, facts were facts. Her idea worked, big time. Juyeon barked out orders, telling everyone to get ready to skydive down and finish the cleanup. Everybody respected her now. They dove off the chopper straight into the bug zone, ready to end the invasion for good. After this epic showdown, the whole world exploded with news about the British rescue. Back home in Korea, the hype could not be bigger. Media, fans, even old grannies were squeezed into the airport, hoping to get a look at their national hero. Reporters scrambled for interviews. Juyeon was the woman of the hour, the legend who found the true weakness and led the whole operation. She basically saved the UK from total disaster. Word got out that the British royal family even knighted her before she left. Seriously cool stuff. Juyeon was used to being famous, but even she felt overwhelmed by all the love and noise today. Right behind her was Kang Youngpyo, trying way too hard to look cool and important, even though his haircut was a whole disaster. The crowd cheered for both of them, but only one was a real goat. Kang Youngpyo got all this praise for killing most of the Malaysians in England. But let's keep it real. Those bugs were already paralyzed and helpless, so his victory wasn't nearly as epic as he made it out to be. There was a whole army of about 200 heroes involved. Korea's squad was the real reason the UK was still standing at all. News about their battle and the secret bug killer, red flower ant sap, was everywhere. While walking around, Dojun overheard the news on a giant screen. He actually paused for a second. It was pretty cool to see Juyeon using his tip about the bugs. But then Kang Youngpyo's smug face popped up on the jumbotron. That dude looked like a problem. Dojun would have to handle himself one day. Meanwhile, inside a fancy restaurant, Dojun was having coffee with our queen, Juyeon. She brought a mountain of gifts for Yuna, Grandma, and even Dojun himself. She told him not to open them yet, but Dojun didn't care. He peeked and found some really nice clothes. Juyeon just wanted to say thanks for the bug info. Compared to the wild fame and rewards she got, buying him some clothes was like loose change. She even promised him a car or anything else he wanted next time. Bro really unlocked sugar mommy mode. She tried, of course, to ask where Dojun got his insider info on the Macassians, but, you guessed it, Dojun wasn't saying anything at all. So she switched topics and asked about his plans. Juyeon probably expected some hero talk or revenge drama, because if Dojun picked a fight with people like director Heeju or Kang Youngpyo, stuff could get wild. But Dojun was way simpler. He just wanted to buy a better home for his family. The one they had was rented, after all. While these two were reconnecting nicely, Kang Youngpyo was having his own post-mission party. Dude was chilling at a pool, surrounded by girls and all his excited fans, but he couldn't stop thinking about Juyeon. Something about her had changed. Now she was too competent, too mysterious, and Youngpyo didn't trust how she learned the Macassian weakness. Even on the flight back from England, he tried to poke info out of her. He teased that she stepped up for Dojun during the prosecutor mess, and he mentioned how she was at the scene when Cheol-woo, his dumb cousin, got destroyed. Juyeon kept her cool and told Youngpyo that Cheol-woo's downfall was his own fault. The guy literally tried to kill Dojun and got what he deserved. Youngpyo, with his psycho smile, shrugged and agreed. He felt Cheol-woo was an idiot, but family is family, you know? He also figured he could use that connection as an excuse to get revenge on Dojun later if he wanted. For a split second, Juyeon almost showed some real emotion, but she snapped back and distanced herself quick. She said she had nothing to do with any revenge, and she would not interfere if Kang Youngpyo or Dojun went at it. That actually surprised Youngpyo a little. He thought Juyeon and Dojun were way closer. When Juyeon ignored him for the rest of the flight, pulled down her sleep mask, and went to sleep, Youngpyo ended up feeling suspicious. His gut told him Juyeon was hiding something, and he better stay careful with anyone connected to Dojun. Elsewhere, back in England where everything started, things were still messy. The spot where the Macassians came out, Long Sutton, was all torn up. There were still broken trees and destroyed land everywhere. The British Hero Association was low on fighters but sent teams into the rift to grab as many magic stones as possible before the next wave hit. Outside, a bunch of D-rank guards stood watch, chatting about how easy it would have been for even weaklings like them if they had known the Macassian bug trick. They felt like idiots for missing their chance at big money. The guards remembered the rule. After a rift overflows with monsters, it can never go back to a safe gate. Second waves always brought a new monster. And a lot of countries had been wiped out by surprises like that before. Nobody liked the feeling of not knowing what might crawl out next. Suddenly, the rift pulsed with weird energy. The team inside had only been gone 5 hours. Nobody should be coming out yet. Naturally, the guards went on high alert. Usually, they expected mining teams, or maybe some sneaky thieves hoping to grab dropped stones. But what stepped out was not normal. From that broken rift came a strange person, humanoid but clearly not a hero. The guy wore strange, otherworldly armor, and his face was covered in brutal scars. His whole look was insane, like it was ripped from a wild fantasy game. Even in a city full of superhuman stuff, this guy looked totally out of place. Whatever just crawled out of that rift, everyone could tell things were about to get real nasty again. Before the unlucky guards could even pick up their phones for backup, something insane happened. They suddenly lost control over their own bodies. Like, poof, they started floating straight up into the air, helpless as dolls. The dude in crazy armor took a single step, and he made it look so easy, just casually holding all those guards in the air. One of the British guards tried to fight back, pulling out the classic UK hero move. He threw 3 knives, all flying straight for the weirdo. But get this, just as the blades were about to hit, a bunch of floating green lights flashed around the guy. The knives literally disappeared, like they never existed. It was straight up freaky. The scar-faced man grumbled that these guards were way too weak for his taste. Then he clenched his fist, and the green lights zipped around. Suddenly, the guards were getting diced up, arms and legs flying everywhere. Bro, imagine getting turned into a potato crisp at work. Even worse, a gross smoke, black and sticky, started pouring off his body. With that dark stuff, the guy summoned a weird phone right out of the air. Checking the phone, the ugly dude found out the current percentage in this world. He figured out that he'd been gone from Earth for 10 years. 10 years. But his hardcore mission was only at 20% completion. All his work opening rifts across dimensions, and it still wasn't enough. He thought about giving up, but nah, that quitter drama wasn't for him. He decided to amp up the mana levels and keep pushing. But first, he wanted to clean up this shitty place, maybe get rid of all the weaklings. That gave him a twisted little smile. Meanwhile, halfway across the world in South Korea, life was way more chill. Dojun was out on another one of his farming runs in Paju, just doing his thing and totally clueless about the psycho in England. With only his backpack, Dojun stepped into the off-limits area, cool as always. Suddenly, his super senses tingled. He felt weird vibrations under the ground. He knew exactly what that meant. Gross worm monsters. These things burst out with bodies covered in nasty metal spikes and mouths full of razor fangs. Dojun stood right in the middle of all that action, looking bored. Instead of looking at the monsters, he just checked out the tunnels they left. One quick glance, and he figured out there were about 26 worms below, spread out in 100 meters. That's some next-level IQ, dude. I'm impressed. Dojun got a wicked smile and powered up some mana in his hand. He wanted to see how many worms could even survive just his first magic attack. He fired the energy blast right down the hole, then waited. Silence then. Boom. Explosions went off all around, blasting debris and flames everywhere. Those worms below? They got cooked and shot out of the ground, flopping around on fire. With this style, Dojun didn't have to get dirt all over his drip. He was all about working smart, not hard. Back in the city, things were tense in a big, fancy office. Deputy Director Min Honki and his boss, Na Tae-wang, from the Korea Hero Association, were having a serious meeting. Their main problem? So Dojun. None of their hero meters could even measure his strength. Some bigwigs thought it was dangerous for someone that busted to be roaming around unleashed. He wanted Dojun to answer all the association questions, no matter what it is. The deputy read out the report. Ever since Kang Cheol-woo tried to get rid of Dojun in a gate, everything got weird. Dojun somehow survived, came back way stronger, and dealt brutal payback. He shut down the Mappo Rift solo. Sure, he played rough, but he always seemed to have a solid reason. In short, Seo Dojun wasn't just strong, he was all but unstoppable. Na Tae-wang said wild untamed power was the toughest to manage. But hey, at least this wild horse was now inside their stable. They found out why this meeting happened. Dojun requested a hero license. And not just any license. Because he had a guarantor, none other than the country's favorite, Juyeon. He got special treatment. The association old-timers couldn't believe it. But there was no way they wanted to cross Juyeon. With her superstar power, they rushed through the process in record time. Just like that, Seo Dojun was officially South Korea's 8th S-rank hero, and he hadn't even set foot inside the association office. Yeah, absolutely nepotism. With this new status, he could now hunt wherever he wanted. No more rules or babysitting. Absolute freedom. Just an hour later, word of Dojun's latest mayhem, the Flaming Worm Massacre in Paju, reached the big boss at the Hero Association. Instead of being scared, the director just laughed. He liked having a new S-ranker, living up to the hype. Ordinary heroes needed a whole squad to clear a rift like that. Dojun? He soloed the dungeon like it was nothing. Most people would call that craziness. One vice president, who had always been against Dojun, was now flip-flopping. Suddenly, he wanted to make Dojun a celebrity, splash his story all over the news, and turn him into the association's golden boy. Luckily, the deputy shut that wild idea down fast. Min Hun-ki, the deputy, said they should at least get Dojun's opinion before turning his whole life into a circus for the public. The vice president, though, was pushing hard. He thought that introducing a new S-rank hero to the world would give stressed-out people some hope. He was a real salesman, pitching the idea to director Na Tae-wang like it was the best thing since matcha latte. But the director wasn't buying it. He wanted to play it safe and meet Dojun face-to-face first. Wise move, old bro. You are safe from Dojun's slap for now at least. Meanwhile, Dojun was still busy in his own Monday is Murder Monsters mode. He hacked through another unlucky worm with total ease. All the remaining worm monsters tried to gang up on him, but honestly, their attacks were so obvious to him it was like fighting in slow-mo. With magic burning through his hand, Dojun pulled off this crazy sweeping move, beheading a dozen worms all at once. He landed in the classic superhero pose, surrounded by a pile of monster meat. The ground was totally covered in defeated worm bodies. Dojun just stood on top of the heap, hands smoking and looking fresh, farming all the aura in the world like a boss. Heck yeah, this is cool as fuck, not gonna lie. He let out a sigh. Yeah, this level of non-stop monster killing sucked up a ton of mana. His hands even looked a bit crispy from all the magic. That meant only one thing. It was finally time for Dojun to get himself a proper weapon. No more bare hands for this guy. He needed something special. After all, he was a sword god. Just read the title, you dumbass. Punching god is from another manhwa. So, he headed to the Gasan Hero Complex, where heroes buy their gear. Dojun picked a shop that looked chill and walked in. Behind the counter was some random bruised-up shop bum, totally glued to his phone and not even interested in customers. The bell rang as Dojun entered, but the guy just asked if he had a reservation without even glancing up. Bro didn't care that Dojun was a paying customer. Dojun ignored all that. He dumped his heavy backpack on the counter and told the guy he wanted a weapon made out of everything inside. The bum said no way. Only people with a reservation could get service. Apparently, Dojun had already been rejected everywhere else on the street, but this was the only shop that even picked up his call. Still, the bum wouldn't budge, acting super annoyed at having to look away from his phone. At this point, Dojun's patience was about to explode. He grabbed the guy by the collar, asking who the boss of the shop was. The bum claimed his dad was the owner, so Dojun told him to call the higher up. As soon as possible. He didn't come here for nothing. He came because someone he trusted, Ju Yan, by the way, recommended this place. The bum eventually slunk off and went to get his father after hearing our girl name. Soon out came the real craftsman, an old dude in a funky welding mask, Choi Cheol Guang, a master at making hero weapons. Dojun told him straight up that Ju Yan sent him, and both father and son immediately realized this was no ordinary customer. The old man was stunned that a huge celebrity like Ju Yan knew about his little shop. But Dojun wasn't here to chat. He pulled out his monster loot, a giant black viper's fang. The old man checked it out, impressed. It had been ages since he saw a material that rare. Dojun had one request. Make him a sword, as long as possible. Because, let's be real, who doesn't want the big sword, right? If you know what I mean. The old man explained that stretching non-metal like that could make it break easily and suggested making 2 medium swords. But Dojun wasn't having any of that average compromise. He wanted both pieces fused into one mega blade. Length over everything, bro. And oh, he wanted max mana absorption too. The bum finally interrupted, totally annoyed but bragging his dad had already made grade 3 weapons, pretty legit. Dojun just picked up a sword from the display case. He checked the material and said it was only grade 5, not even that high. Then he did something crazy. Took the blade and crushed it with nothing but his bare hands. The sword shattered like glass. Both the bum and his dad stared in disbelief. This was supposed to be their pride and joy, now just a pile of knife confetti. Dojun basically told old man Choi, if you want to make trash, don't bother. If I can break grade 5 metal like this, just imagine what I'll do if you try to scam me. Yeah, dude was not someone you wanted to play games with. With the shop boss convinced, and more than a little scared, Dojun finally secured someone to do the job. Then he was off to do what he does best. More hunting. Today's target was a green-skinned cyclops, a one-eyed monster freak show. This big boy sensed something dangerous approaching. Dojun's killer vibe. While most hunters suited up in pro gear, Dojun just rocked his regular jeans and hoodie. The cyclops didn't waste any time. He tried to stomp on Dojun from the start. When that failed, the monster went nuts, grabbed a whole tree, and swung it around. But Dojun dodged like it was nothing. Then Dojun flashed in and sliced a chunk off the monster's shoulder. The beast wailed like a baby, but it wasn't done yet. It went wild with strength and rage, swinging and smashing everything. Dojun didn't flinch. Not even a little. He just cut 2 more juicy wounds into the beast's body, a full-on bloodbath. If this was just any ordinary monster, that would have been game over. But Cyclops monsters are tanky. They heal so fast, regular pain doesn't even matter to them. But Dojun already knew that. For unbeatable healing? Simple. You just keep smashing and cutting until healing can't keep up. What a classic move, bro. Our goat wasn't here for a challenge. He was here for a lesson in pain. Dojun didn't let the Cyclops catch its breath. Every time it tried to heal up, he scratched, sliced, and basically filleted the monster like he was in a sushi bar. For the grand finale, he chopped off the beast's head and nailed a superhero landing. Again. Blood everywhere, but the job was clean. Victory went to our main dude, who sighed from a bit of tiredness, maintaining that mana sword was way too draining right now, as expected. But Dojun was here for a reason. He pulled out a pitcher, dipped it into the monster's gaping wound, and just filled it up with fresh Cyclops blood, like it was orange juice. Yeah, gross, but genius. The whole point of this hunt was to get that rare blood for his new weapon. When he got back to the hero district at sunset, the same bored shop bum was at the counter. Dojun plopped the pitcher of blood down and told the guy, without a word wasted, to give it to his dad. With this plus the 2 black viper fangs, the sword could finally be made right. He didn't bother explaining. He just left. Everything needed for the blade was now in the shop's hands, but for the best mana absorption, he still needed one secret ingredient. And there was only one spot on Earth to find it. While Dojun mapped out where to get his last rare material, his S-ranked sugar mommy, Ju Yan, was on relax mode. Well, trying to be anyway. While chilling during her vacation, she answered an important call from our boy. They both talked something about Brazil. After the call, Zhang and Ju dropped a bomb. The association had picked Brazil as the next place for a hero mission. The Brazilians had basically admitted defeat. Their rift is so wild, their government and hero squad gave up on handling it alone. For Korea, that meant money, danger, and a ton of rare monster loot up for grabs. Inju urged Juyeon to bring her friend. She was totally hinting at Dojun, the guy who fought the Kassarian with her and maybe had a little romantic thing going on. Inju thought it'd be great for the new S-rankers to team up. After a lot of teasing, she finally got Ju-yeon to promise she'd accept the Brazil mission. But would Do-jun actually come? Total mystery. Back in the Gasan Hero Complex, Old Man Choi was stunned by Do-jun's weird genius. He never would have believed monster blood could melt and fuse viper fangs together like that. With the Cyclops juice, he could make a blade as long as Do-jun wanted, almost 180 centimeters. Bro, that's taller than you guys. Now that's a sword. Do-jun wanted it two-handed but still usable in one hand, and he said, "Make it 5 kilos heavy." The old craftsman warned, "Bro, that's no joke to swing with one hand. You won't just use it once or twice." Do-jun didn't care. Those were his specs, and he stuck to them. Old Man Choi guessed it'd take 1 month to make and should hit grade 7 on mana absorption. Still, Do-jun thought that wasn't enough. He needed the final boss level upgrade with that secret ingredient. He told the craftsman to just get the shape ready, and he'd bring the magic bling for the power boost later. Choi thought he knew what rare stuff Do-jun was talking about and got legit nervous just thinking about it. A few days later, Do-jun met Ju-yeon in the city. Just like she promised, she showed up with a brand new car for him. He stared at his fancy new ride and thanked her. And right there, Ju-yeon actually blushed hard, like the top hero of the country was suddenly a shy schoolgirl. Ju-yeon insisted, honestly, this was the tiniest reward for the insane tip he gave her. $1 million for a car? Chump change compared to what she gained. While Do-jun admired his new wheels, Ju-yeon asked about his meeting with the stuffy old Hero Association executive. Do-jun told her grumpily that the old dudes wanted to make his life public, but he demanded a super fat payout from them first. He kind of respected President Na Tae-wong's vision, but didn't like the political games. In the end, negotiation failed, and Do-jun walked. Once his car check was done, Do-jun hopped in, and Ju-yeon wasted no time jumping in the passenger seat. While they buckled up, Ju-yeon told him about the Brazil operation prep. The second he heard Brazil, Do-jun kind of zoned out, locked in on her face, and softly asked if she was going. Ju-yeon stammered yes, then Do-jun straight up invited her to go together. His Brazilian riz was next level, because Ju-yeon immediately went red in the face. Bro had the strongest game in the country. Meanwhile, across town, there was another person seeing red because of Do-jun. The evil rich witch, Director Heju, was getting strung along by scammer-in-chief Kang Young-pyo. He was guzzling up more of her money, demanding bigger payments for the operation, and he hadn't even tried to kill Do-jun yet. Director Heju was losing it, thinking about dumping him and just hiring some random killer for the job. Kang Young-pyo, though, started dropping intel bombs. He told her that Do-jun had just become an S-ranker, same league as him now. Director Heju thought it was impossible. The weak kid she banished was now a world-class hero? Kang Young-pyo told her to catch up. He spent big cash on this info, and if she didn't believe it, just wait until Do-jun walked into her place and handled business personally. Killing her, of course. That scared the life out of that witch. She begged Young-pyo not to bail, promising she'd pay whatever it took to erase Do-jun from this story. But Young-pyo's mood flipped. He said, forget cash. He wanted heavy business deals with her company from now on. Director Heju would have signed her soul just to be safe. Suddenly, Young-pyo got a message that made his eyes light up. Seemed like the universe just handed them the perfect chance to finally deal with Seo Do-jun. A few days later, the whole country got swept up in a fresh wave of hero mania. News broke about another crazy overseas mission for Korea's top heroes. Social media was losing its mind. People wanted to see what would happen when 5 S-rank monsters landed in Brazil to save a country teetering on the edge. There was a lot of national pride, everybody cheering for their favorite stars. Let's check out the lineup. Jung Sung-ho, the solo carry money chaser from P Group. Park Hae-yeol, a dude whose guild had pretty much crumbled, so he was showing up for the cash reward. Hyun Ju-yeon, the legend herself, still riding high after saving Britain from disaster. And of course Kang Young-pyo, the crazy one who would do almost anything for those sweet tax-free magic stones. Just scoring one of these stones could completely change a regular person's life. But the real mystery for everyone was Seo Do-jun. Not a lot of fancy hype for him on the live streams. People just called him a rookie, making his first big appearance on the worldwide stage. They didn't know what was coming. The plane ride was long, but nothing wild happened. When they landed in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the National Hero Association was super stoked to host the Korean S-rankers. Koreans were the fastest team to answer Brazil's call for help. Some S-rankers didn't even bother with hotel check-ins. They went straight to the grind. Still, the Brazilian bosses were stressed. They were hiding a dark secret. Their own national hero, Morais, was dead. And he didn't die to some monster. Security footage said a human killed him, but nobody knew how. For now, they just needed everything to look chill until the joint mission finished. At the briefing, the Korean squad heard the game plan. But one S-ranker was missing, Seo Do-jun. Ju-yeon texted him. Turns out, he jumped straight onto a new plane. He was already on his way to the riskiest rift, up in Santarem. Ju-yeon saw this and started silently freaking out. This dude was going straight into the worst danger, solo. The official plan was for heroes to spend a couple days getting used to Brazil and only then go into assigned rift zones. But Dojun? Nope. He was already out there. Bet he wants to get the special item fast, right? After the meeting, Ju-yeon wasted no time. She grabbed a taxi headed straight to Santaram. Kang Young-pyo snooped on her, trying to get her to stay put, but she told him right to his annoying face that she was going anyway. Even he thought heading to Santarem was suicidal. The place was basically a wasteland thanks to the monsters. When Ju-yeon got there with her Cleome guild, they caught up to Dojun just as he was heading out. Ju-yeon demanded to know why he rushed in. Dojun was chill and claimed they were the ones who were late. They started bickering like a couple of old married folks. Finally, exhausted by the questions, Dojun said he was here for the blue croco. That meant nothing special to Ju-yeon, and she didn't like how he kept treating her so casually. She tried to remind him she was older and deserved more respect, but Dojun just ignored all that noise. The Cleome guild watched all this and couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their guild leader Jong In-ju had definitely never seen someone risk bossing Ju-yeon around before. But as the group moved deeper into the rift, some A-rankers started to get nervous, feeling like the whole plan was too bold. But they figured with Ju-yeon around, they'd be safe. Still, it was Dojun who actually led. Some with no experience doubted him, but the ones who'd seen him in action before fully trusted his calls. Ju-yeon wondered if he was trying to clear the rift and save the day, but Dojun just laughed that off. He said he didn't care about hero stuff. He was only here to grab monster materials and squeeze maximum loot from the area. A few peaceful minutes later, the team hit their first big roadblock, the blue crocos. The hell, I thought blue crocos are like some kind of bird, not this freaking ass dragon wannabe. These things looked way meaner in real life. Even with a damn good guild, all they could do was defend and try not to get chomped. Things started getting dicey. That's when Dojun finally made his play. He calmly drew his sword, an expensive loaner from Old Man Choi, who knew exactly what Dojun was after. Then Dojun told the A-rankers to move aside and enjoy the show. He honed in on the crocos, aimed, and shot forward like a missile. He swung his sword in this flash-quick single move, and it was like an anime slash. He said, "Breath of water. First form, water surface slash." After that, he had already passed through by the time the crocos got ripped to chunks. Everyone just stared as the big monsters dropped, sliced to bits. The doubters were humbled, and the fans were cheering inside, feeling totally dumb. The mysterious rookie was actually the strongest one there. After that, the group made it to their next stop without much trouble. Once it was dark, the guild set up camp. That night, nobody could shut up about what they'd just seen. So Dojun, one-shotting a whole group of blue crocos without even breaking a sweat. People were eating dinner, but all anyone talked about was the new S-ranker who made monster hunting look like a joke. Not many outside the inner circle knew, but he beat the Kassarian the exact same way. Meanwhile, Dojun wasn't worrying about gossip. He was by the fire, watching his weird steak cook. Ju-yeon came over, asking if he'd finished prepping the blue croco hearts, the stuff he actually came for. His coolers were already full of the hearts, all packed up and ready for forging. Ju-yeon couldn't figure out what monster hearts would be good for. She suspected Dojun was on another level of genius or just crazy. She glanced at his pan and saw him grilling some freaky-looking meat. Ew, disgusting shit. Definitely not beef, Dojun explained, super casual. That he was grilling blue croco meat, and even offered her a taste. The dude could have eaten regular food, but he chewed up that monster steak like it was the world's best BBQ, using his knife as a fork and barely blinking at the odd looks. Even Jong In-ju was weirded out, watching the so-called rookie leader eat like a wild animal, while the rest of them sat on perfectly normal food. After gagging a little at the thought of grilled blue croco meat, Hyun Ju-yeon's curiosity got the best of her. She picked up a slice, stared at it like it could bite back, then finally took a smallest bite you've ever seen. Jong In-ju wanted to stop her, but Ju-yeon trusted that Dojun wasn't about to poison her. She braced herself, but after that first taste, she was shocked. It was actually delicious. Who would have guessed monster meat could taste like a high-end restaurant in this hell zone? So, there they sat, two campers, chewing on freaky blue steaks while everyone else just watched in disbelief. Curious, Jong In-ju pulled Dojun aside and whispered the real question. How could a nobody like him charm Korea's top hero? Miss Ju-yeon had never fallen for anyone before. What special riz did he have? Did he have secret moves, or did Ju-yeon just like mysterious, monster-hunting weirdos? The word romance sent Dojun's brain spinning back to his old Imperial Academy days and the wild memories, romantic, tragic, and even heroic, of Mazel Grain, Luenda Lazulian, and especially Veronica, the knight. Damn, bro. He got all the girl. Definitely success rizzing all the girls. You better ask him how. Dojun got lost in nostalgia until Inju's whisper shouting yanked him back. For his answer, Dojun said Ju-yeon was just a moth to his flame. Inju almost died from secondhand cringe. But hey, the knight felt playful and friendly. Even Dojun had a smile on his face and laughed with his weird little hero crew. Meanwhile, back in Sao Paulo, Kang Youngpyo was living in high style. Big room, soft sheets, plenty of drinks. But his thoughts couldn't escape the question, why was Ju Yun in such a rush? He checked in with his assistant about which monsters in the Santarem region actually paid out, but nothing looked special. Every monster related to Seo Dojun kept breaking the rules. All this weirdness made Youngpyo's suspicions grow. Suddenly, he got a call from Director Heeju. She wanted to know if the job was done. He wasn't surprised. She sounded super stressed, and he poked to find out what was up. Turns out, the T-Group chairman had finally heard about Dojun being an S-rank hero and was telling the boy to come home. Director Heeju started freaking out that the old man might get involved. Youngpyo took a weird amusement in her anxiety. He promised her that Seo Dojun would not be coming back to Korea, and she seemed relieved at last. Then he looked at his map and sent a message to Takashi. Dojun running off by himself just made Youngpyo's job 100 times easier. Sunrise in Brazil, the expedition team pushed further into the wild with Dojun leading the way. Ju Yun had the map, playing navigator, and kept warning Dojun about the danger if he went deeper into the jungle, especially because of the lynx. This thing wasn't just a big cat. Its cries could stun your mind, paralyzing you on the spot. Most hunters wouldn't go anywhere near it without protection. Ju Yun handed out earplugs to everyone, begging Dojun to wear some too. These weren't just any plugs. The info came straight from Brazil's own hero. But Dojun was having none of it. He just calmly refused, like earplugs were for babies. Ju Yun didn't want to back off. She kept trying to convince him that this was the smart move. Dojun, of course, just wandered into the thick green jungle without looking back. After a full day of sweaty, bug-infested trekking, the team finally reached the lynx's den. Night fell, and the full moon glowed over the forest. The lynx appeared, an overgrown, psycho-looking cat with glowing eyes, staring them down like fresh meat. The Cleome Guild panicked. Inju told everyone to cover their ears and get ready for hell. The beast's legendary cry was coming, and nobody wanted to deal with paralysis. But not Seo Dojun. Nah. He just stood there, eyes locked with the lynx, not moving an inch. This wasn't prey meeting predator. It was two big bros with monster auras seeing who was really in charge. In that stare down under the moonlight, the rest of the world disappeared. For a moment, it was just Dojun and the lynx in a deadly contest. Like the winner will be a fucking alpha or something.
Then, the lynx let out this wild, scary howl. The sound was so strong, shocking everyone there. Juyeon and her squad felt their heads hurt so much. The sound from the lynx really messed with them. Everyone covered their ears and looked like they were dying from the pain. But then, something weird happened. Juyeon looked at Dojun and got all shocked. She saw that our boy was doing nothing. He was just chilling, not even covering his ears. This dude was so calm, he then took a stone, and an orange flame just popped up in his palm like magic. When the lynx on the tree kept letting out a big roar, Dojun, like a total boss, flicked that stone in his hand at that monster. But that lynx dodged the attack and ran away. Everyone freaked out and chased the monster. But damn, the lynx lured them into its nest. A bunch of lynx came out. They looked angry, just as creepy, with glowing red eyes. One lynx used its power, and its eyes started to glow even more. Juyeon, Inju, everyone, was caught looking right at those eyes. Juyeon felt the stare and freaked out a little. Dojun suddenly popped right in front of her, covering her eyes with his hand. Now that was smooth. Our boy knew what was up. He told her that it wasn't just the lynx's sound that messed with people. It was the lynx's eyes that could freeze your mind. Now that's some next-level monster power. Juyeon looked super surprised, but Dojun was already ready for the next fight. He told her to keep her eyes closed, just for a bit. Now Dojun pulled out his giant sword. A fiery orange energy started swirling around him and the sword. It looked insane. He wondered if this was his limit for now, but he didn't stop. The fire around his blade got even bigger, making a huge arc of light. He started to do some special sword technique from his family. When he swung the sword, his eyes glowed, and the energy just exploded out from the blade. The guild member basically lost it. People said that this looked way too dangerous, and honestly, it kind of was. Dojun attacked straight at the lynx and exploded in a big wave of fire. Everything in front of him was hit by this shockwave. Juyeon had to cover her face from the blast. The jungle right there was just gone. The land smoked, leaving a deep dark hole where the trees used to be. All the monsters were wiped out. That was fast. So many lynx were down, lying on the ground with smoke coming from their bodies. It was totally dead. Juyeon couldn't even believe it. This was impossible for her to understand. She was just staring, like, dude, did this actually happen? But wait, one of the lynx monsters, hurt but still alive, tried to stand up. It was shaking and looking at Dojun with those crazy red eyes. Our boy didn't mess around. He walked right up, and with a super fast move, took it out with his sword. He was cold about it. He looked at the dead creature and decided to take its glowing red eyeball. Yeah, he actually took the eyeball out. He said he needed it for something later. After that, everyone walked together. They looked like their minds were completely blown. People whispered that this was insane, that it was not even at a human level anymore. A guild member wondered if Dojun was even stronger than the famous Shabri Alphonse. Someone else said maybe he was on the same level as Cain Lester. But bro, Cain Lester was known as the strongest hero in the world, so some people said that was too much. The group kept walking through a dark, swampy part of the jungle. It was creepy, and it got worse because they saw undead walking through the water. These undead looked like gray zombies, and their red eyes glowed in the night. A guild member joked that the undead could not read the mood. The other one said it was because they did not have brains. Good one. But the undead didn't really care. They started rushing toward the group with their mouths wide open, creepy as fuck. Yet the goat Dojun did not even flinch. He moved so fast nobody could keep up. He just punched that disgusting monster with his bare hand. He chopped off heads, broke zombies in half, and killed all of them. It was like he was playing a video game on easy mode. He finished it off by smashing the last undead's head into the ground. Black goo went everywhere. People could only just stand and stare. Dude, they were all totally shocked. Later, while they were still walking, Juyeon came over to Dojun. She wanted to know about his awesome sword move. She asked where he learned it, and she talked about the crazy red sparks and the cracking sound it made. Our protagonist just kind of paused and asked if she wanted to learn it. Juyeon said she did, of course, but Dojun told her that in a peaceful world like this one, nobody would ever need that skill. He wondered when she would ever use it. Juyeon got a little annoyed. She said there was a limit to how dismissive a person could be. She reminded him that she was also an S-class hero, and said she would probably need to use the move at least once before she died. She wondered if maybe Dojun just didn't want to teach her. Our boy stayed quiet. She looked pretty hurt by that and said maybe he did not care about her at all. Inju whispered that those two were just fooling around. Yeah, no matter what, they look like a couple. Juyeon stomped away looking angry. But Dojun just watched her go, with his face looking totally blank. Then Inju said it was time to get out. People looked pumped. The group walked toward a weird black and purple rift. This was their way out of the dungeon. Inju thought to herself that it was all thanks to Mr. Dojun that nobody got hurt, and that next time she came here, she could beat this place even faster. But then, right after Inju stepped through the rift, she suddenly stopped because she heard people scream in Japanese that they would kill someone. That was a surprise, right? She recognized this Japanese voice. The voice kept yelling about how someone dared to get in his way. There, Dojun nonchalantly covered Juyeon while she was blushing hard. The fuck is happening? On the other side, there was another group standing and blocking them. The new group had a really big, tough guy leading them. The leader was Ryoma Takashi. He looked like a total Yakuza boss and was super muscular. He was an S-class hero, the master of the super strong Empire Guild from Japan. Takashi said that he wanted to enter the gate today, but now Dojun's party was in his way. He told them to go away before he smashed their faces. But suddenly, our boy said that Takashi's party was probably just trying to mess with them. Juyeon was surprised. She asked Dojun if he really could speak Japanese. Dojun answered that he could, kind of, but really, it was the real Dojun who had studied it. Takashi got even more menacing and started cursing at Dojun. One of Takashi's henchmen got mad and shouted that Dojun should apologize and bow right now because their boss was a big deal. Yet our boy just told them not to bother and to get lost. Juyeon thought to herself that the Empire Guild was one of the top 5 guilds in Japan, but they were also known as serious troublemakers because of their gangster Yakuza roots. She thought that, no matter how strong Dojun was, maybe they should just avoid these guys. Suddenly, Inju jumped between the two groups, trying to calm everybody down. She begged both sides not to fight, but Takashi threw insults her way, calling her all sorts of nasty names. He even called her a bitch. Inju's guild members started shouting, swearing at Takashi, and everybody started yelling at each other. Finally, Inju told everyone to shut up. Inju tried to explain who she was, the leader from the Gillyflower Guild, and said maybe they could settle things there. Takashi acted like he didn't care. He said he had never heard of her guild and joked in a slimy way that maybe she was just looking for a man, but he promised her turn would come. Ugh. Now, Dojun had enough. He stepped forward, tried to protect both girls, but Takashi smiled like he wasn't scared at all and said that he was planning to kill him anyway, so he wanted him to just wait a little. He then punched our boy. Yeah, that's crossed the line for sure. Dojun thought to himself that this was definitely a provocation. Our boy said he would accept the challenge. He then dashed forward and punched Takashi back, throwing him down to the ground. Takashi's men couldn't believe what just happened. Dojun turned to Takashi's guild and told them to step back, because this was self-defense. The other guy hit first. He told them that this was going to be a one-on-one fight. and the rest were just small fries who should back off. Suddenly, Takashi took off his clothes and agreed. He told all of his men to step back. He then got up. His body started to glow with a creepy red aura and his muscles got even bigger. Juyeon watched, worried. She only begged at Dojun, asking him to maybe only kill half of them. The fight started, and Dojun suddenly moved at insane speed. He jumped straight at Takashi and stepped on his head, then kicked him so hard. Bro. Takashi landed with a groan, looking super confused and embarrassed. He wiped sweat from his face and started to realize this fight was not going the way he wanted. In his head, this was impossible and wondered who the heck this monster Dojun really was. He thought everything he heard about him was wrong. Why? A fucking rookie could be this strong. This time, Dojun gathered blue energy all around him, and his eyes looked super dangerous. He stared at Takashi like he was about to end things for real. Takashi was super scared now. He yelled as loud as he could and ran away. But bro, Dojun just stopped Takashi and stopped him easily. Then he reached out, grabbed Takashi by the face, and that man instantly looked super scared. He asked if someone had told Takashi to pick a fight with him. Takashi, totally terrified and sweating buckets, could only keep silent. Well, our boy had a rough idea and begged Dojun to spare him. But Dojun just said nope. He slapped Takashi across the face so hard you could almost hear it, then punched him in the stomach with so much force that Takashi actually left the ground before crashing down, totally knocked out. Dojun stood over him with his arms crossed, like this was just another boring day. Inju watched the whole thing and said that she knew it would end up like this, but wow. Dojun made it look so one-sided. She muttered that Takashi would die at this rate and begged Juyeon to stop Dojun. Juyeon ran over just as Dojun was about to punch Takashi again. She shouted for him to stop because Takashi would actually die if he hit him one more time. Our boy just said he would take responsibility, but Juyeon yelled at him, asking how he could even say something like that and what kind of responsibility he was talking about. Anyway, she told him not to do stuff he would have to take responsibility for. Dojun shrugged it off and said he had seen plenty of bad guys like Takashi before, and it was better to just get rid of them. Meanwhile, Takashi's gang tried to help their boss, and Juyeon, with Inju, actually had to hold Dojun back to make him stop. Inju told him there was no need to get himself in trouble over someone like Takashi. Inju then turned to the other Yakuza guys and said they must have realized now that Dojun was out their league. She told them that if they didn't want to end up like Takashi, they had better answer him honestly. All the Yakuza henchmen shouted, yes, totally terrified. Dojun looked down at them with his cold gaze. He told them that just kneeling wasn't enough. He wanted them to put their faces on the ground. The Yakuza guys all pressed their heads into the dirt so fast you could almost hear their fear. Dojun said that the Yakuza used to cut off their fingers when they messed up, right? Then, one Yakuza got scared out of his mind and begged for forgiveness. Dojun told him to say, I'm sorry for being a piece of shit, and he would let it go. The long-haired guy in tears did exactly that. The Cleome Guild couldn't help but grin at the show. Now, the story switched to an office in Sao Paulo. There was a Brazilian director who was checking a report. He could not believe what he was reading. He asked how he was supposed to believe that an S-class hero like Takashi was beaten so badly he might never recover, and that the opponent was only one person. Juyeon and Inju stood in front of his desk. Well, the report must be true, because Takashi was the only person who got hurt. The director was frustrated because he wanted Korea and Japan to work together to close the mountain rifts, but now, after seeing the report, he could tell it was not only Brazil's problem. He said the matter would go to the Korean and Japanese hero teams instead. He then asked Inju if they saw anything weird near the mountain rifts. Inju thought for a second, but said nothing was unusual. The director let it go, but asked why Dojun didn't come, since his name was everywhere in the report. Juyeon explained that Dojun said he had to wrap things up and left. The director was confused and wondered what that meant. Suddenly, the story changed to a hospital room. Takashi was lying in bed, literally wrapped up in bandages from head to toe. He was so shocked because Dojun was standing there, holding a nice bouquet of flowers. Dojun told him to stay still, because he was here for an official visit. Then he pulled out the glowing lynx eyeball from the bouquet and pressed it right to Takashi's bandaged face, like some kind of creepy magic trick. The eyeball started to glow, and so did Takashi's own eye, like he was being hypnotized. Dojun told Takashi to explain what happened. Takashi started speaking in a mumbling, messed up way, saying it was because of some insects, and that he caused a lot of trouble for the Korean heroes. After that, Dojun just left the hospital room, looking serious and determined. Takashi started cursing quietly to himself, hating the Yakuza now. Well, our boy doesn't care about anything but his own interests. Somewhere else, inside the Korean Hero Association office, Director Tae Wang and his assistant were talking about the drama in Brazil. Apparently, every news story now is just about So Dojun. People couldn't get enough of him. From how strong he was to make S-rank hero knock out, and the gossip about how strong he really was. The assistant was amazed too, and asked if it was really true that the Japanese Hero Association stopped looking into what happened. Director Tae Wong said that was what he heard. Even Takashi, the guy who got beat up, had admitted the whole thing. The director also guessed something big must be happening on the Japanese side, since normally Takashi was always making trouble, but now everyone was being hush-hush. The assistant wanted to know what kind of something was going on, but the director just said it was hard to know. He felt that, with Dojun in the middle of everything, the balance of the world's heroes might be about to go totally crazy. That did not sound chill at all. Later, at a fancy hotel, all the heroes from different countries were getting ready for the big operation to close the Brazil rift. There was even a cool pre-battle festival to help everyone relax and make friends. Heroes were mixing it up, planning, and getting in the mood to beat up some monsters. Inside the giant hotel ballroom, Dojun showed up looking sharp in his long coat. Dude, he was the center of attention. As he walked by, people could not stop staring and whispering. The big rumor was that Dojun had totally destroyed Takashi, and the story was spreading everywhere. Inju even said to Juyeon that Dojun was so amazing he made everyone else seem ordinary. But Juyeon seemed kind of down. Inju noticed that and wondered what was bothering her friend. Maybe Juyeon saw something that brought her down? Then, she could see a pretty girl was now talking to our boy, Gloria Tyler. She was America's own S-class hero, and everybody loved her. She was even ranked #1 in the Hero Beauty Poll. Inju Cupid's alarm was ringing like crazy and slapped Juyeon on the back. She told Juyeon to stop just sitting there and to do something. Juyeon was confused, but decided to walk over to where Dojun was talking with Gloria. Gloria said it was fun and told our boy, "See you again, Kessel." Juyeon just stood there, confused, and asked Dojun who Kessel was. Dojun said it was him. Juyeon was shocked. She couldn't believe Dojun had a secret English name, and it sounded like he used it before. Yes, this guy is too mysterious for her. She wondered to herself if Dojun used to live abroad, but she checked up on him in the past and never found anything about that name. She felt a little mad that he never told her about it. While all this was going on, off in a corner, Kang Yongpyo watched everything. He looked smug and was sipping champagne. In his mind, he thought Takashi was an idiot and couldn't even handle someone like Dojun. He figured he would need to step in and handle Dojun himself. "Yeah, bro, you're gonna be slapped in the face in a couple of chapters. I can smell it from 1,000 miles away." At the same time, this asshole eavesdrops on Juyeon and Dojun, and she says to our boy that he needs to be careful. Even though Dojun was strong, the enemy wouldn't always fight fair. There were still heroes who were friendly with Takashi, and these guys could be tricky. But Dojun just said, "Enough," and told Juyeon not to worry because all those types of goons would not be a problem for him at all. While saying this, he smiled and looked at Yongpyo as if he was directing all of this to him. Yongpyo overheard and got so mad his eyes almost lit on fire. He swore to himself that he was going to take Dojun down with his own hands one day. Next, the scene moved outside near Santarem at the huge dark rift. The Cleome Guild stood in front of it. Inju said she had never seen a rift this cloudy and dark before, but another member wasn't worried. With 2 S-class heroes around, they thought there was no way anything could go wrong. Well, Inju agreed, rallied the guild, and everyone got fired up to go inside. They were just full of confidence. Bro, maybe a little too much confidence. But as the group entered the rift, Dojun stopped and looked around, acting a bit tense. Juyeon noticed and asked what was wrong. Our boy asked them if they don't feel anything right now. Inju shook her head, and Juyeon said she did not feel anything strange. She asked Dojun what he meant. Yeah, Dojun had a bad feeling. He realized that the mana, the magic power in the area, was getting stronger and stronger. It was rising fast, and something felt seriously off. Meanwhile, deep inside the rift, an unknown shadowy figure was standing around with glowing eyes, holding a phone. On the screen, there was a number, 23.51%. The shadowy figure said it would not take long for the percentage to hit 30% and called everyone pathetic insects. If they all just died, it would be easier. Then, Cleome Guild started feeling sick. One member said their body felt heavy and it hurt everywhere. Another said it was hard to breathe. Someone else realized that the mana was even thicker than in the Patesia forest, which was already famous for being super dangerous. Juyeon watched Dojun and realized this was the first time she had ever seen him look so worried. Whatever was inside this rift, it was definitely something new and crazy. A real problem, bro. After that, Inju tried to get everyone to chill out even though their bodies felt heavier and weird. She said that this was probably just something about this rift zone, no big deal, right? But nobody should lower their guard. She also told Juyeon to help protect the group and asked Dojun to do the same. Dojun just said that sounded good to him. Juyeon also agreed this was the best plan until they figured out why everything felt so strange. Inju kept reminding everyone that their goal was to close the rift, no matter what happened. She told the team to stay on high alert and move out. The whole Cleome guild yelled that they were ready, sounding pumped but also nervous. The group started to move deeper into the rift, going slow and watching for any trouble. Not gonna lie, it looked sketchy. Then, the scene switched over to another spot in Brazil, the Manaus Rift Zone. Here, there was a joint team of French, Korean, and Brazilian heroes trying to hold things down. Out of nowhere, this team got swarmed by killer bee hornet monsters. Bro, these things were flying, stinging, and tearing the heroes up. One French hero shouted that normally even C-rank heroes could beat these monsters, but now everyone was getting destroyed. His teammate looked totally freaked out. It got real ugly for them. Even the A-rank heroes, who were supposed to be super tough, were struggling hard. One A-rank with spiky hair fought back, but it was obvious he was losing. In his thoughts, the French hero realized that something was wrong. He felt heavy too, and ordinary attacks from these monsters felt super deadly. He worried about how many people were even going to make it out alive. Back to our MC, his group ran into a bunch of black orcs. These orcs were huge, muscular, and had scary glowing red eyes. One Cleome hero thought it was weird because these black orcs were way too strong compared to normal. One guild warrior decided he wasn't scared and jumped at an orc, yelling like he was in a superhero movie. He hit the orc, but the orc barely even noticed. Annoyed, the orc swung a massive battle axe at him. Juyeon had to push the warrior and another guild member out of the way before they got wrecked. The man she saved thanked her, shocked that she moved so fast. Juyeon warned everyone not to rush in without thinking, "Bad idea in a place like this." Then she jumped high into the air, her whole body glowing with a purple aura. She kicked one of the orcs right in the head and actually staggered it. The orc was super pissed now and tried to smash Juyeon with its axe. She was ready to block, but another orc came from the side. With her slick move, she made the orc kill its own friend. And then, as a finishing touch, she killed the other orcs. Looking at that, all the guild members watching thought to themselves that So Dojin's power made everyone forget Juyeon was also an insane S-class hero. She was super strong. But even so, the orcs were dangerous. Another orc came, but right then, Dojun showed up like a hero from an action movie and punched the charging orc so hard its head exploded. That was epic. With Dojun and Juyeon leading the charge, the rest of the team finished off the orcs pretty fast. Inju looked around and realized that if things were this tough at just the entrance, closing this rift was not going to be easy, even with both S-class heroes on the team. After the fight, Dojun knelt down by one of the dead orcs, with Juyeon beside him. She asked him what he was staring at. Our boy asked if she noticed something that looked like a black ripple on the orc's body. Juyeon was confused, but Dojun said she had to pay close attention to see it. If you didn't focus, you wouldn't notice a thing. Then they both saw it. A faint, dark purple energy moving like a ripple from the dead orc's body. Juyeon was shocked and wanted to know what that was. Dojun explained that this was why the orcs were so strong. He wondered out loud why something called dark mana was showing up in this place at all. The rest of the Cleome team watched with worried faces. Something was going on, and it wasn't good. Whatever this dark mana was, it looked like a real problem, and things were only going to get harder from here. Deeper inside the dungeon, they got attacked by a pack of swamp ghouls. These monsters looked like giant puddles of sludge, but way scarier. The guild member tried to fight back, but their attacks just did not work. The ghouls would get smashed apart, but then they'd just ooze back together and keep fighting. The Cleome guild members were freaking out. Some of them couldn't even believe what they were seeing. One man got hit by the monster, and his gear was broken. People were freaked out. Even the strongest protective suits were getting torn open by these things. They realized fast that these new monsters were way too dangerous. The team was starting to get swamped by the ghouls, and everything felt hopeless. Someone yelled out, totally confused, asking what the heck was going on here. Now, Inju had to step it up. She spun around with her weapon and cut through a bunch of monsters at once like she was in an action movie, but even she was worried. She thought to herself that if these normal swamp ghouls were this strong, then something called Velkara would be insane to fight. Inju couldn't help but wonder if this rift was even weirder and more dangerous than they realized. At the same time, over in the Manaus Rift Zone, things were falling apart for another group of heroes. A survivor limped through the mountains, shaking in fear. He said that all the other heroes, even really strong ones from Brazil and France, were dead, and it was all because just a few Velkara monsters showed up. Dude, those things sounded like a real nightmare. Back in the thick of the swamp ghoul mess, Juyeon stared at the monsters as they kept regenerating. She asked Dojun about something strange with the Velkara. Dojun explained that this monster was filled with dark mana, and they really needed to be careful. Juyeon realized that dark mana must be the same black aura around the black orcs, and now it was around these ghouls too, making all the monsters stronger. Dojin nodded and agreed. Juyeon kept talking while blasting a ton of ghouls away with some crazy purple energy, and she started chatting about mana. She wondered if it was like the magic power you need to cast spells in video games. Juyeon was honestly shocked. So this time, mana was even real in this world. Dojun said yes. Mana was what separates heroes like her from ordinary people. But just then, a ghoul jumped at Juyeon while she was still thinking. Dojun instantly punched straight through the monster. He thought to himself that a world without mana must have been peaceful. But that peace for Earth was long gone now. Juyeon, still trying to figure things out, made sure she understood that dark mana was like giving monsters super steroids. Dojun said exactly. It was like an athlete cheating with crazy drugs, but for monsters. She finally got it, but wondered how he was so sure about all this. Dojun said it would be weird not to know. After cleaning up the swamp ghouls, Dojun led the group following a special map. They were avoiding all the bad places where Velkara might show up. When they reached a strange cavern, they stopped. Inju said they'd found something. Inside the cavern, there were big webbed cocoons hanging from the ceiling. Some were full of black orcs and killer bees all wrapped up together. Inju explained that these were food cocoons made by Velkara, and they had to watch out because that meant the monsters had to be close. But Dojin said they actually found the dangerous one. And it was a good thing, because it was better to find it first than get attacked later. He pointed to all the cocoons, which were pulsing with some really evil-looking energy. Then he showed off a bit, making a little flame on his fingertip. One guild member asked if he was some kind of mage, because that looked awesome. Dojin explained that this way was dangerous, and then he fired off some small flames at the cocoons. Each cocoon exploded, one after another, lighting the place up with fire. Our MC explained that if Velkara, with all that dark mana, could control all those monsters like evil puppets, if he didn't burn them now, the whole group could get surrounded and get totally wrecked in an instant. So the only plan left was to go hunt down Velkara for real. All the people there were just watching Dojun in silence, totally stunned. Inju kept thinking to herself that, even though this was Dojun's first time in a situation like this, he looked like a pro. The more she watched him, the less she could believe he was just human. One of the other guild members was also freaking out on the inside, like, dang, this guy isn't even human anymore. A bit later, Juyeon couldn't take it and grabbed Dojun by his collar. She straight up asked if he was on his second life or something, because, come on, how could a person act like this? Dojun just repeated, second life? And then had this little flashback in his head. He remembered his past self, all dressed up as a blonde knight with a giant sword. He smirked and told Juyeon that it was kinda similar. Then Dojun switched the topic, asking how far they were from the Rift Core. Inju said if they made it through the jungle, they'd be halfway there. Our protagonist just nodded and said they could totally clear the place today. Yeah, not so fast, because Juyeon and Inju basically exploded. Bro, for Dojun it might be easy, but all the regular guild members looked exhausted and beat up. Most of them looked like they could barely keep going. Dojun said fine, they could rest. He would just go handle Velkara and come back. Before anyone could even argue, dude just vanished. Poof. Gone. In a blur. Inju and the rest were left standing there, eyes wide. How did he still have so much energy left? That was nuts. So now, Dojun was flying through the dark jungle, scanning every shadow. He spotted his target, the monster Velkara, which was a giant, nightmarish spider deep inside a clearing full of webs. Our boy drew his sword and went straight for it, dodging webs and slicing up Velkara's legs like it was nothing. The thing screeched and tried to fight back, but Dojun was just too fast. He landed a final hit, sliced the monster right in half, and hit the ground without even breathing hard. He thought maybe he felt good because of all the dark mana he absorbed. He didn't even feel tired. He then walked back through the misty forest and joined the Cleome Guild again. Juyeon watched him like she was still dreaming and said she couldn't believe one guy beat Velkara all alone. Inju felt the same. One man pointed out that Dojun didn't even look tired. Dojun just said there were no more monsters left in the jungle and told everyone to chill for a while. The group made camp, and eventually everyone sat around the fire. Dojun, like always, is roasting big monster steaks over the flames. A guild member asked Dojun if she could try the meat. Dojun just handed him a piece with no drama. Another guy wondered out loud if maybe eating that weird monster meat was the secret to getting strong, like Dojun. He figured, why not try, nothing to lose, right? Then took a big bite, hoping for a miracle. Our protagonist thought to himself that the meat would only fill someone up, but he admired their guts for always wanting to get stronger, even in silly ways. He actually liked that. Then he decided to be generous, and made a small, glowing ball of golden energy in his hand. He gave it to the two guild members who ate the meat, and they absorbed the energy. The guild member suddenly felt a rush of energy shooting through his body and was super surprised. The other guy also said he felt it too. Looking at how chatty those guys were, our boy could only smile. Later that night, everyone was looking over a map, planning their next move. Inju said if they kept straight, they'd hit the rift core, but because everyone was tired, they should rest up and attack tomorrow. She pointed out that Dojin wanted to close the rift today, but their gear was full, and they were honestly out of stamina. Juyeon said she understood. She joked it would be a lie to say they weren't tired. The dark mana had made all the monsters tougher, and even S-rank heroes like her felt the pressure. Dojin hesitated. His original plan was to take things slow, collect as many valuable materials as possible, including the special blue croco heart only found in Brazil. But with dark mana showing up, things got way too unpredictable. He didn't like variables like this. Something about this dark mana just felt wrong. He poured out a bunch of shiny red gems on the map. He told Inju and Juyeon to grab the gems, go back to the hotel first, and get everyone rested up. He promised to close the rift soon and catch up with them later. Bro, Dojin was about to solo close a rift. Everyone just had to trust that he could really do it. But honestly, who would doubt him after all this? Later, Dojin finished off the last of the swamp ghouls. These monsters were supposed to be crazy dangerous with all that dark mana inside them, but our boy just made it look easy. After wiping them out, he reached into the remains of the final monster and pulled out a big, glowing red mana stone like it was no big deal. A little later, Inju asked if everything was going to be okay. Thinking about Dojin, Juyeon was trying not to show it, but she was worried too. She remembered watching Dojin make his last big entrance, just dashing off like a bullet, as if he was born to wreck monsters. Inju admitted she saw it too, and said Dojin still had tons of energy left, more than anyone else. She started teasing Juyeon a bit, asking if she was worried about him. But our girl tried to play it cool. She said she wasn't worried, but honestly, just calling herself the same rank as Dojin, S rank, felt kind of embarrassing. She wondered if anyone else in the world was even close to his level. Spoiler alert, probably not. Meanwhile, in the deep part of the rift, Dojin was absolutely crushing it solo. He fought through wave after wave of super powerful monsters. There were wolf-looking beasts, huge muscle brute monsters, and even some classic giant trolls, but none of them could slow him down. His sword, glowing with energy, cut through everything in his path. The monsters tried to attack Dojin with whatever they had, but their weapons just broke against his fiery moves. He had this move where he cut open one beast, reached in, and took its heart. Dude didn't even flinch. He kept collecting red mana stones too, and his backpack was starting to fill up. He thought to himself that it was kind of wild how much loot he was getting from each monster, but he didn't slow down. He just shouldered his bag and moved on, walking deeper into a forest which was now bright because morning had come. Bro, literally farming this place non-stop. Back at the Brazil Hero Association, things started heating up. In the big situation room, operators were staring at their monitors when suddenly, alarms started blaring. One of the operators pointed out a red alert on the map, right where the Santarém rift was supposed to be. Another operator realized the rift was actually closed. Just like that, the director asked who was there, and someone said there was only one Korean team, the Gillyflower Guild. But then things got weird, because that same guild had literally just checked out of the rift 10 minutes ago. The director started sweating, confused about what was really happening. What actually happened? Well, rewind 10 minutes. Deep inside the rift, Dojin was standing in front of the final boss, a giant twin-head ogre. This beast was huge and had two snarling heads, both of them buzzing with dark purple energy. You could just tell this thing was trouble. But who the fuck is our boy? Of course, he sees this monster like we are looking at some nasty cockroaches. Our boy explained to himself that this was the core. This boss had taken in so much dark mana, it had evolved way faster and got way stronger than normal. The ogre roared, stomped down, and sent a shockwave through the ground. But Dojin just kept cool. He drew his sword, which started glowing super bright, ready to finish this battle. His eyes narrowed. He was about to use the Bandian family swordsmanship, second form, to end this fight fast. Yeah, that poor monster is probably gonna die in one attack. Our boy then jumped straight at the big ogre and started swinging. His sword cut right through the ogre's body. The monster looked down at itself, totally shocked. Dojin told the poor ogre that this was just the beginning. Oof. Our dude was not playing around. He moved super fast, almost like a blur. His flaming sword kept cutting the ogre into smaller and smaller pieces. The ogre's head actually went flying through the air while it was still screaming. Yikes, bro. That was kind of hardcore. When our boy landed back on the ground, he looked pretty chill. Even though he had just turned the giant monster into monster chunks, he was not tired at all. He looked around, gave a big sigh, and put his sword away. The rift now opened in front of him, This fight was easy as fuck. Now, Dojin started thinking, because some weird dark mana, that's like evil magic, was everywhere, things got sketchy. He thought that if the dark mana wasn't coming from the gate itself, maybe someone else was causing it. But who? Dojin had some ideas. Maybe an undead lord or even an imperial lich. Those guys sounded like bad news. But if they were really there, the whole earth should be full of undead monsters by now. Strange, right? So, he had no clue for sure, but he decided that just closing the rift would not fix everything. If someone else was causing this, they needed to find out the truth. After the rift's core was gone, he promised himself that he would get to the bottom of this. He looked super determined. And oh boy, our bro was intense. Meanwhile, in Brazil, things were kind of crazy at the Hero Association headquarters. The big boss there, the director, and he was sitting at his desk, thinking about all the wild reports he had gotten. His assistant was there, looking a bit stressed, and holding a bunch of papers. The director kept thinking it was insane. The expeditions call on teams from different countries to clear the rifts. Even in one spot, they sent 3 nations S-rank heroes all together, but only one S-rank hero made it back alive. But how the fuck did the team from Korea, with only one S-rank hero, close the rift, and all of the team survived? Now that was impressive. The assistant told the director that news was coming in from other places too, but most teams failed and just gave up. He said he would make a full report soon. The director sighed big time. Even though every rift had at least one super strong S-rank hero, the results were kind of depressing. Only one team really succeeded, the one led by Juyeon. But the assistant wasn't even sure if that team was really the one that closed the gate in the end. The director was super confused. He thought the Korean team was the one supposed to close the rift, but the assistant told him that the rift closed after the team came out, which made no sense. The director wanted to know where Juyeon was now, and the assistant told him she should arrive soon. That made the director full of energy. He slammed his hands on the desk and wanted to meet her immediately. Dude was definitely not chill. Anyway, when Juyeon and Inju's group left the rift and arrived at headquarters, Dojun completely closed the first rift, and then he entered a second one. This man was on a roll. Now the gate was located in an empty town square. Everything was ruined, and he was heading for some huge body of water. He thought that, this time, the core was deep under the water, so he told himself, "Alright, let's go." Bro, you could already tell he was going to do something wild again. Somewhere else, at the Brazil Hero Association headquarters, the director was chilling, well, more like stressing out, in his office. He did not look happy. Juyeon sat across from him, very serious. The director asked if he was really supposed to believe what she was saying now. This dude was pretty skeptical. Juyeon told him that if the hero in question was him, then it was possible. She meant Dojun, of course. The director wanted to get things straight, so he asked if Dojun really closed the whole rift zone alone. Juyeon said, maybe he did. That answer did not make things any easier for the director. He started thinking this was super confidential, like not for everyone kind of news. Many S-rank heroes had even died in other places with these rifts. With a stern face, Juyeon told him that if Dojun hadn't been there, she probably would not have made it out herself. The director sighed because he still found it hard to believe all this stuff. Juyeon kept explaining that the monsters in the rift were powered up by something nasty called dark mana. The director heard this and wondered if Dojun was actually stronger than all those monsters, and maybe even stronger than the S-class heroes. Juyeon just nodded a little, like she did not need to say more. But the director remembered more news. He said that in the south, there were reports of some cracks closing. That area didn't even have dark mana yet. Juyeon warned him not to relax. She said the danger levels were on a whole new level this time. The director was curious because she had mentioned that the color of the rift entrance was different, but there was still no real way to check the truth. But still, the best choice is to take everything under control and warn everyone not to enter the purple-colored gate. Then, the director grabbed his phone and told his people to check all the cracks everywhere in Brazil. Right now. This dude wanted to get moving. Juyeon then stood up, took out her own phone, and made a call as she left the office. She was calling Chairman Na Tae-hwang, the big boss of the Korean Hero Association. She was asking him if there were any changes in Korea with the dark mana situation. Tae-hwang told her it was the same as before and that there were no new reports. He also told her to stay sharp. Juyeon warned him that even S-class heroes could have a hard time if they had to deal with a bunch of monsters using dark mana. After all, she faced it herself. Chairman Tae-hwang thought to himself that if a boss-level monster powered up with dark mana showed up, the results would be scary. So, he knew they needed to get super prepared. Both of them were serious. This was no time for jokes. Meanwhile, at an underwater rift, Dojun was getting ready for some deep-sea action. He stood waist-deep in the water, looking like he was about to go scuba diving, but without the gear. Well, Most rifts like this village with big water near it would have their core in water, like a river or lake. Problem was, most people could not breathe underwater. Only a few heroes had special talents for this. Like Ivan Rupert, he was a big underwater pro from New Zealand with underwater breathing powers, which sounded pretty classy. But Ivan wasn't here, just Dojun. So what he could do was just try to hold his breath and clear this gate fast. Anyway, Dojun could feel the dark mana lurking under the water. No time to waste! He jumped in and sank below the surface into the deep, dark place. It was really dark down there. He could tell right away that the water was like that because of all the dark mana. Suddenly, shadowy, eel-like sea monsters started swimming around him. But thank God that fish Netrol. Our boy thought he should first handle the weight to stand inside the water, and then get ready to resist any attacks. Then, as he was now able to stand out of nowhere, a giant armored sea monster called an Arachon came charging up from below. The dude looked like a big problem, especially since it was hyper from all that dark mana. Dojun just clenched his fist and let out a big shout. That punch was hardcore. It smashed the Aracon's armored head into pieces. Just like that. Body parts floating everywhere, dude. But that was only the start. Swarms of insane-looking, red-eyed piranha fish rushed at him. Our protagonist just moved through them like it was nothing, grabbing them and crushing them in his hands, one after another. Bro, if even Ivan Rupert, the underwater hero, would freak out if he saw this. For real. Anyway, Dojun kept fighting like a machine. He punched and kicked his way through the whole team of monsters, making it look easy. All he had to do was move his body, plant both feet, and use his fist at max speed. One by one, Dojun took them all down, cleaning up the place. Then he saw something in the darkness. He stopped and stared. There, in the dark depths, was a giant glowing eyeball with a creepy purple iris just staring back at him. Yeah, he found it, whatever it is. Probably the real enemy boss? Our boy got excited. He realized he was looking at some monster called Acromos, and apparently, this thing was legendary back in his old world. Only a legendary hero ever managed to hunt this thing down when it first showed up. And now, instead of panicking, our MC just got this wild, confident smirk on his face. He thought there was no way he could skip out on a chance like this. Dude was so pumped to fight something this rare. But then, the fight got crazy. Acromos opened its giant mouth and started sucking in the water like a giant vacuum cleaner. That swirl of dark purple energy was so strong, it was pulling in everything. Fish, water, and even Dojun himself. Our boy had to slam his feet down and fight to not get pulled in. He knew this monster had no real predators, and its main move was to trap enemies in some weird, subspace pocket inside its mouth and eat them whole. Not a good way to die, bro. Normally, he could just punch this thing to death and be done, but Dojun had bigger plans. He wanted that subspace for himself, so he decided to hold back on smashing and try to control it with his mana instead. Easy, right? Nope. The suction was still nuts. He blasted out with a huge wave of golden mana, and all the little fish monsters around him got roasted instantly. But Acromos just kept pulling, and Dojun could tell he was about to get dragged right in. So, the dude changed tactics. He started sucking in all that dark mana from the deep sea, even though his body definitely wasn't loving it. He got a cut on his cheek and everything. Our MC could tell he was pushing himself way too hard, but he decided to go all in anyway. Suddenly, the whole world flipped. His body was too strained, and he was getting sucked into Acromos' vortex. But instead of freaking out, he just powered up his hand with a burst of fiery golden mana. He risked everything and pumped out every bit of his mana. Next thing you know, bam! The scene switched. Now they were outside by a river, bright daylight, and a massive splash of water shot up into the sky. The monster got blasted out, and Dojun followed right after, giving it a brutal kick for good measure. While the monster was flying, our hero reached out and pulled this swirling, galaxy-looking orb of dark energy right out of the monster and into his own hand. Jackpot. That was Acromos' subspace, and he'd just stolen it for himself. The monster hit the river with a huge splash, and everything finally went calm. After that, our boy woke up lying in the grass, looking like he'd just had the world's hardest nap. There were a bunch of white birds chilling around his head, pecking at his face. Dojun woke up with a huge sneeze, scaring all those birds away. He felt a little out of it, but after checking out his hand, he realized his mana was even stronger than before. He figured all the pain was totally worth it, especially since now he had that subspace orb floating next to him. For the cherry on top, Dojun just tossed his stuff, his bag and sword, into the subspace like it was no big deal. He did a big stretch, feeling pretty satisfied with himself, and decided he was done with this place. Time to close the rift and head back home. Our hero stood by the river, watching the sunset and those birds flying off, probably thinking about how nobody else could ever pull off something that badass. Dude really was on another level. Anyway, back to the Korean Hero Association building. Chairman Taewong was chilling in his office, but his whole vibe was just, ugh, not happy. His aide came in with some bad news, saying that, even if it wasn't official, people were saying some top heroes had died. That hit the chairman hard, and he started thinking about how they'd just lost some amazing talents. Apparently, these deaths all happened in certain rifts, not everywhere, but still, spooky stuff. The aide was waving a document around, and the chairman couldn't help but think about our boy Do-jun. Somehow, this kid had managed to clear out a rift that was supposed to be impossible. Honestly, even the chairman was surprised at how much of a legend Do-jun was turning out to be. Now, the aide brought up the whole Brazil situation and Ryoma Takashi's mess. The chairman was kind of happy, saying at least Korea's heroes, especially Ju-yeon, were getting all this international hype. But then he got serious, asking if anything weird was going on in the Korean rifts. The aide said nope, Brazil's situation seemed unique, for now. The chairman told him not to get lazy, to keep eyes on everything, every second. Can't blame him, you never know when these rifts will go nuts. The aide admitted he was worried about Do-jun, being stuck in Brazil and all. But the chairman just laughed it off, saying that if anyone should be worried, it was probably the Brazilian head guy, Chairman Lopez. He figured Lopez was about to get totally hustled by Do-jun, like, to the point where the guy would lose his pants. The aide needed a second to get that. But then Chairman Taewong just started cracking up, smacking the table and everything. The chairman said Do-jun is no ordinary guy. Our hero's reputation? Yeah, even the top boss thinks Do-jun is on another level. Jump over to Brazil now. Chairman Lopez was sweating bullets, totally freaking out. He was sitting across from Do-jun, Ju-yeon, and Inju, and from the look on their faces, they were not impressed with his drama. Lopez said Do-jun was asking for way too much, but Do-jun just stared him down, all cold and businesslike. He basically told Lopez that if the deal was too much, then he'd just leave and not help anymore. That freaked the chairman out even more. He begged them to think about Brazil's safety, saying it was Do-jun's duty as an S-rank hero, but Do-jun just shut him down, saying he'd already closed 2 rifts by himself, and that maybe Lopez should talk to his own heroes about duty since they hadn't done anything. Cold, bro. He even pointed out that Brazil's problems weren't his responsibility, and asked if they'd send heroes if Korea was in trouble. Of course, the chairman got real quiet at that. Suddenly, an assistant ran in, saying all the rifts near Santarém were now blocked off, no way in or out. That just made Lopez look even more desperate. Inside, he was thinking that if this happened again, Brazil was basically doomed. But Ju-yeon just smiled, like she already knew the answer. She politely told Lopez that if keeping Brazil safe was his #1 goal, then maybe Do-jun's crazy offer wasn't so crazy after all. Lopez got the message and gave in. He called Do-jun back in, even though he looked like he wanted to cry. Do-jun laid it out. He wanted $50 million for every rift he shut down, and he'd already done 2, so he wanted $100 mil up front. Dude even held up 2 fingers just to rub it in, ice cold. Ju-yeon was watching all this and thinking that, yeah, if people found out, they might call Do-jun greedy. But the Brazilian Hero Association was way too proud to ever leak this story. And even if someone did blab, Do-jun was just the type who didn't care what people thought. She actually seemed kind of impressed by that, and maybe a little flustered. For Do-jun, inside, he felt like he'd hit the jackpot. He was telling the original Do-jun that, with this kind of payday, he could finally keep his promise to build the safest home for their family. To be honest, even Carcelian himself felt good about keeping his word. So yeah, the Brazilian government wasn't happy, but they had no other choice but to pay up and sign a big keep your mouth shut contract. Nobody ever found out about the deal, so Do-jun's reputation stayed nice and shiny. Meanwhile, Ryoma Takashi was stuck in the hospital, all bandaged up and probably regretting every choice he'd ever made. There was a big sad funeral at the airport for the heroes who died in the rifts. Do-jun and Ju-yeon showed up in black suits. Do-jun had this tiny, confident smile on his face, like he knew he was just built differently. After all, seeing the death of a battle partner is an everyday event he often sees in his previous life. Now, cut to a super fancy hotel restaurant. Do-jun, Ju-yeon, Inju, and the Cleome Guild squad were stuffing their faces. Inju asked if they should hit up another rift together. But wait, why did Do-jun look like she didn't want to? Our boy explained he was just thinking of how to make the most money out of the situation. Best farming loot plan? Probably. He came up with this genius plan. While he was clearing one rift, the guild would move to the next one. Then, after they closed one rift together, he'd go close another on his own. That way, they could knock out up to 3 in a single day, and he'd even give the guild a bigger cut of the cash. The guild members were hyped, all cheering and ready to go. Do-jun leaned over to Ju-yeon and told her not to push herself, just keep the guild safe until he showed up. He said she could do it, since she was S-rank and all. Ju-yeon basically turned into a tomato, touching her hair and stuttering. Meanwhile, the other guild members started gossiping, convinced these two were totally dating since Ju-yeon was so red-faced. Inju got everyone up and moving, telling her squad they'd leave right after lunch. The whole team was ready and pumped. Not long after, Dojun was walking alone through a green, peaceful forest inside another rift. Suddenly, he stopped. Something big was watching him. A massive, jacked-up monster with just one red glowing eye stepped out. Our boy just stared and called it a Cyclops imitation. Instead of freaking out, he shot forward at insane speed, grinning and thinking about making some easy pocket money off this monster. And now, he is flying through the air, ready to smash another boss. Man, this guy never stops. The dude is just a walking flex at this point. Anyway, while Dojun was still in the air, he just swung his fist and smashed that ugly monster right in the face. The monster twisted back, letting out a painful howl. Our boy just landed calmly, staring up at the monster like he was testing a toy and thinking to himself that this one really did have a thick, durable body. He wondered if he should try a different move, so he tried to use his new technique, but the monster got even angrier and lunged at him, swinging a huge arm. Dojun then lifted up his hand, letting dark, star-like energy swirl in his palm. He used his new dimension pocket and tried to see the power for battle. When the monster attacked it, the dimension opened up again from his back and made him punch his own head, like basically moving the monster's hand to attack himself. Dojun watched all of this and just frowned, thinking that this new trick of his was way too wasteful for fighting monsters. Also, it used up way too much mana for not enough damage. Now, while our boy keeps hunting monsters, the Brazilian Hero Association was freaking out. On their big holomap, a red dot vanished. Another rift closed. Everyone started whispering, wondering how this was even possible. Chairman Lopez, the big boss, was sitting at his desk looking like he just ate a lemon. Sour as hell. 8 hours to close a rift? That was insane. He barked at his people to pay up, and his nervous guy in a man bun sent $50 million straight to Dojun's account. Then this guy nearly choked, realizing that at this pace, they might burn through billions in just a few days. Lopez was not having a good day either. He clenched his fist and decided there was no way he could let one dude drain the whole country's bank account. His subordinate asked if they should maybe delay paying Dojun, but Lopez nearly lost it. What if Dojun just stopped killing monsters? That would be a total nightmare. So he came up with a plan. Call every top hero, A rank, S rank, whatever, who was still in Brazil. He said they'd put together a special team, offer a fat reward, and make them race Dojun to see who could close more rifts. Whoever beat Dojun in closing the gate would get $10 million per rift and all the support they needed. And just like that, it was game on. A whole squad of buff, serious-looking heroes got lined up for battle, ready for a showdown. The big question, who could clear more rifts, Dojun, or basically the entire world's hero squad? The news traveled fast. In his fancy office, Kang Yongpyo also got a message from Lopez and started smiling in a way that just screamed trouble. He thought it was about time Lopez tried something, since all the talk about S-rank heroes dying was making everyone nervous. The reward wasn't huge for him, but at least the job would be easier with so many people. Or so he thought. While his team chatted, someone pointed out that Dojun wasn't on the special hero list. Neither was Juyeon or Inju. Yongpyo got all suspicious, asking what the hell was going on, but nobody had an answer. He clearly didn't like it one bit. Meanwhile, back in the Rift Forest, Dojun got a ping on his phone. Another $50 million in his account. Juyeon walked beside him, smiling. She explained that the Hero Association was probably getting desperate, so they had called in every hero they could from all over the world. Our protagonist shrugged. He figured the association wasn't stupid, they just wanted to save money and not let him take all the loot. Juyeon teased that Dojun was way too generous for his own good. Inside, though, he was thinking the association was trying to be sneaky, but he honestly didn't care about the cash anymore. He got more than enough money to protect Dojun's family. Also, there was something way more important for him to do now. Just like the association planned, this whole race only made everyone work faster. Both sides, Dojun's squad and the United World Heroes, started closing rifts at lightning speed. Days went by in a blur. The scoreboard kept updating. Some rifts closed by Dojun and the Cleome Guild, some by the World Team. But the World Team was taking hits. Some heroes got injured, a few seriously. Meanwhile, Dojun was out there soloing rifts like a boss, hoodie up, sword swinging, all calm and cool. After a few days of this madness, the poor office staff at the Brazil Hero Association looked like zombies. One dude's eye bags were basically on the floor. His coworker teased him for it, but the guy just sipped his coffee and tried not to cry. He complained that even coffee didn't help anymore. The rifts with dark mana were getting cleaned up fast, but that just left a bunch of other rifts sitting alone and getting weirder day by day. Nobody knew what would happen next, so the monitors ran 24/7, and everyone was on edge. Then, suddenly, alarms started blaring. the red dot on the map disappeared, and everyone got shocked, couldn't believe their own eyes. Somebody shouted that Rift Zone B41 was finally closed. The whole building just exploded with cheers. People were fist-pumping, high-fiving, even crying a little. One poor dude was bawling like he'd just won the lottery and survived a horror movie at the same time. That's how hard these rifts had been on them. Then, over in Chairman Lopez's big office, his right-hand man bustled in, practically skipping. He told the chairman they'd crushed it. They closed all the rifts within 50 kilometers of Santarem. Lopez let out a long sigh, finally relaxing in his chair, and asked if that really meant the emergency was over. His guy said, "Yeah, all the rifts with that nasty dark mana were gone." Chairman Lopez nodded and started to relax, but then he stopped himself, thinking out loud that there were still some rifts left, but hey, one day without panic would be good enough for now. The subordinate had no clue what the boss was on about, but Lopez just got this sneaky little smirk. He said they should throw a party for all the heroes and agents who'd worked their butts off. Honestly, those dudes deserved it. So, that night, the park turned into party central. There was steaks sizzling on the grill, fancy people in shiny clothes with drinks in their hands, and a jazz band playing smooth tunes under the trees. Everybody looked like they had just stepped out of a movie. Our hero Dojun rolled up in a crisp suit, with Juyeon and Inju looking like $1,000,000 too. They strolled over to Lopez, and Juyeon told him they were there to say goodbye because they were planning to head back home now. Lopez nearly spilled his drink, totally taken off guard. He stuttered, asking if they really wanted to leave already, and pointed out there were still plenty of rifts left. Shouldn't they finish the operation first? Inju jumped in, cool as ever, and told him their job was just Santarem, so they were done. Lopez looked like he was about to cry, and begged at least Dojun could stay, right? That's when Inju's eyes narrowed. She called Lopez out, saying he just wanted Dojun to stay, and turned to ask our boy what he thought about all this. Dojun, like always, barely showed any emotion. He just said he had already made enough money and got some rare monster parts, like the blue Croco's heart, so maybe he'd just leave. Looking at Juyeon's reaction, Inju teased her a bit. Juyeon must be feeling bad and don't want to leave Dojun's side, right? Juyeon blushed and stammered to say it's not that. But thank God, Dojun leaves and Lopez seems rejected. So our boy must be back to Korea, right? But before Juyeon could take a breath, that brat came to another woman. He was talking to Gloria Tyler, straight up looking like a movie star. Inju spotted it right away and nudged her friend, telling her to go see what kind of secret meeting was going on over there. Juyeon just stared, saying it was a crowded party, so there couldn't be any secrets. But Inju got all fired up, saying that with a beauty like Gloria in front of Dojun, he wouldn't notice anyone else. If Juyeon didn't move, she'd lose him for sure. Not wanting to lose her crush, she decided to move closer. But suddenly she could hear the conversation, and Gloria said this was a good chance for Castle to, well, do something. Hearing that, our girl wondered what she meant. Wait, it wasn't something weird, like them living together, right? In the end, Gloria handed Dojun her business card and told him to contact her anytime if he wanted. Juyeon couldn't help but think that Gloria was seriously pretty. But Dojun's face was still in his famous poker face. Wait, was she actually jealous? She couldn't believe she was even thinking that. Girl, just confess, or another girl will steal your man. Anyway, Dojun suddenly asked Gloria for a favor. He told her about the gold market, this famous global event held in Las Vegas, and asked if he could get an invitation. Gloria just smiled and said there was a small catch. Dojun had to visit her house a week before the event. Hearing that, Juyeon's brain just short-circuited. In her mind, she pictured Gloria waiting for Dojun in a nightgown, and she started to panic. But of course, trouble had to show up. Kang Yongpyo, the world's most annoying S-rank, walked over, smirking like he was the star of his own show. He said it was a great sight, really great. Korea's top beauty and America's top beauty standing with the mysterious hero? That was a whole vibe. He totally mocked Dojun, saying he had a flower on each arm and that it must feel like he had the whole world. Yongpyo's eyes narrowed, all menacing, and our MC tensed up inside. Something was about to go down, and even Juyeon could feel it. She thought this was bad news. Suddenly, Yongpyo let out this huge fake laugh and told Dojun not to be so nervous, acting like he wasn't planning anything. But then he dropped the act and said he just wanted to introduce someone, a friend. That's when Ryoma Takashi showed up, looking like he wanted to kill someone, still with his broken hand. Dojun's eyes went sharp, ready for whatever came next. Why this fucker came here again? Anyway, Juyeon, standing with Gloria, looked surprised and a bit worried. She wondered how Takashi got out of the hospital already. Daniel Lopez, the guy running the party, was watching all this go down from a distance. He was stressed, like super stressed, because he didn't want Takashi to meet Dojun again. He kept thinking this was the worst timing ever. So, Dojun and Takashi locked eyes. Our boy gave him a little smirk, acting all calm, and asked if Takashi's body was feeling better now. Takashi smirked right back and said that, thanks to him, he had a very unforgettable experience. Bro, the tension was insane. Chairman Lopez, trying to play peacemaker, went up to Takashi with a worried smile. He told him that he hadn't invited him because he thought it'd be too much, but now he was relieved to see him up and fine. Then he tried to guide Takashi away, talking about a comfy sofa. You could tell Daniel was just trying to avoid a fight. Yongpyo was watching all this from the side, looking annoyed at how the chairman was ruining his fun. But then he turned back to our hero, Dojun, with that annoying smirk on his face. This guy really thinks he's the main character or something. But Yongpyo, being the snake he is, started poking at Dojun, asking if Takashi ever got an apology, saying he deserved one since he was the one who got hit. Man, this guy was trying to start something for sure. Our MC was not about to play nice though. He clenched his fist, and you could see he was trying to keep it together. Juyeon and Gloria just watched, both looking worried, like they knew something explosive was about to happen. Then Dojun called out to Takashi, his voice hard. He said that Yakuza were trash, straight up, no filter. The dude's eyes even started glowing red, and the whole party went silent. Everyone was shocked, even Juyeon, who thought what the hell was happening. Takashi couldn't believe what he'd just heard. He was shaking with anger and maybe a little fear. But somehow, he only said, of course, the Yakuza were trash, that they only made things worse for society. He also called them garbage, right in front of everyone. Chairman Lopez freaked out, grabbing Takashi's shoulder and begging him to calm down. But it was too late. The whole party was watching. Suddenly, he played some kind of voice note from his phone. From there, people could hear two men talking. It was Yongpyo and Takashi himself. Yongpyo told him they should hurry up and do what they talked about before. Takashi was confused and asked what he meant, and Yongpyo reminded him there was someone in Brazil they needed to take care of. Takashi tried to remember, and then Yongpyo just said it. So Dojun. Some of the other guests were freaking out at this point. The recorded voice kept talking about how they could handle Dojun inside a rift, and then he started making even grosser comments, saying maybe he'd try to hook up with Gloria or Juyeon in Brazil. Dude, this guy is the worst. Gloria just watched with her usual cool face, while Juyeon looked totally disgusted. Yongpyo laughed like a creep and said he'd see them in Brazil. Yeah, he was dead now. Our boy Dojun was watching all this with a smile. He thought to himself that the lynx's eyes he got from before really had a huge effect. He looked at Yongpyo and decided that this idiot had picked the wrong enemy. He promised in his head that from now on, he was going to make Yongpyo's life hell, slow and painful. For a second, people saw Yongpyo sweating like crazy, looking terrified, but then he forced a nasty smile back onto his face. In his head, he was blaming Takashi for messing up his big plan. He got so angry and said if Takashi kept running his mouth, worse things would happen. Before anyone could blink, he attacked Takashi. There was a crazy shockwave, and Takashi went flying, coughing up blood, his eyes wide with shock. There, the bastard tried to run away. So Chairman Lopez screamed at his men to catch him, and his security team rushed in. Juyeon watched all this, her face super worried. She tried to call after Dojun, saying they had to catch Yongpyo fast. But looking at how our boy doesn't care at all, she even asked why he didn't even try to catch him, since he could have stopped all this with his power. She was frustrated, wondering why our boy hadn't done anything before it went down. But Dojun just walked away in silence and smiling, without giving her any answer. Later that night, the news exploded. The whole world heard about what happened. Korea and Japan were in total shock. Nobody could believe it. The hero associations and governments tried to hide, hoping people wouldn't freak out, but the media was all over the story. They kept digging up dirt on Yongpyo and Takashi, exposing their past for everyone to see. Meanwhile, Chairman Hiju was in her office, absolutely losing it. She smashed a pot on the floor, screamed at the idiots she blamed for ruining everything, and she was so mad that she looked ready to explode. She was officially losing her mind. The woman was smashing stuff with a golf club, screaming words even I probably shouldn't repeat. Glass everywhere, papers on the floor. It looked like a tornado hit her fancy office. Outside the door, her poor assistant, Manager Lee, looked like he wanted to run for his life. The bitch screamed for him to get inside, and man, he just flinched and walked in, shaking. She sat down and asked what happened to Kang Yongpyo. Manager Lee, sweating bullets, explained that Interpol and the World Hero Alliance were after him, but nobody caught him yet. Chairman Hiju just looked even more disgusted. She called him a trash and said she hoped he died while trying to escape. Then she asked if they cleaned up the mess, if the tail was cut. Manager Lee explained quickly, saying they erased all the records, his accounts, his contacts, even the CCTV. He then tried to ask if something was bothering her, and next thing you know, she chucked her phone at him. Dude almost dropped it but caught it at the last second. She told him to check the recent message. Manager Lee read out some creepy text from a number with no name, saying to cooperate or the sender would spill everything. He asked if it was Yongpyo, and what kind of deal the guy wanted, but Chairman Heeju didn't care about that. She lost it, slamming her hand down and yelling that the real problem was that they were already tangled up in this mess. Manager Lee just looked like he was going to faint right there, thinking to himself that if he got dragged any deeper, he was totally screwed. But when he wanted to get out, there was an old man waiting, and Manager Lee's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Standing right in the doorway was So Gyung-chol, Chairman Heeju's father-in-law, and the guy was not here for fun. His eyes glowed red, his face was all business, not the kind of grandpa you want to mess with. Manager Lee just bowed and stammered, then ran away because he wanted to stay alive. Inside, the bitch was on her knees, shaking like a leaf. She looked up at her father with her voice trembling. She tried to say something, but he just slapped her across the face. Hard. Blood started dripping from her nose and her eyes filled with tears, but he didn't care. He glared down at her and asked if he looked like some old fool sitting in the back room. Chairman Heeju tried to play dumb, saying she didn't know what he meant, but Gyung-chol grabbed her face and forced her to look at him. He told her that he knew she'd ordered Kang Young-pyo to get Dojun killed. That really shook her up, but his father kept yelling that his bloodline was an S-rank hero and that he needed to bring Dojun back home, no matter what. To be honest, he couldn't stand P Group acting cocky with just one hero, Jang Song-ho, but now, with all this drama, he felt like the heavens were on his side. Dude was even laughing to himself. But then he turned back to Chairman Heeju, all serious again, and said they'd have to decide how to deal with her screw-up. The bitch just looked desperate. She knew she was in trouble now, for real. Yeah, you deserve that. I hope you and your fat pig daughter will end up in some jail or on the street. Anyway, inside a fancy private jet, our boy Dojun was chilling with his arms crossed, looking super relaxed. Behind him, Juyeon sat by the window, probably thinking about all the crazy stuff that just happened. Now, Dojun's group was heading back to Korea. Dojun, always the planner, was thinking to himself that this whole adventure was totally worth it. They got enough sword materials and a bunch of cash. Juyeon, though, couldn't keep her curiosity in. She leaned forward and asked if she could ask a question. Dojun just asked what it was. She wanted to know about Kang Young-pyo. She basically asked if our boy let him go on purpose. Our MC had that little smirk again. He said yeah, he did it so things would move to the next stage. Bro, this guy always has a plan. Next, back in Seoul, finally, our hero got to relax a bit. He was at a burger place with Yuna, who was destroying a big burger and loving life. He asked if it was good, and Yuna, all smiles and ketchup, said it was the best. But even while he watched her eat, Dojun looked worried, like his mind was somewhere else. He remembered when he got home, things only got heavier. Grandma Hana was lying in bed, looking super weak, and Yuna was sitting next to her, all sad. Our boy just stood there, shocked. Dojun Grandma's health had gotten much worse. He was angry and worried at the same time. He asked why they didn't go to the hospital, and why nobody called him. Yuna tried to stop him from being mad. She said with tears in her eyes that Grandma didn't want to spend money carelessly because it was money Dojun earned by risking his life. Damn, my heart! Even Dojun had to kneel by Grandma's bed and tell her that going to the hospital wasn't wasting money. He said he made a lot in Brazil, so she didn't have to worry. He told her straight up, just do what you have to do, and do everything you want from now on. Grandma looked peaceful for the first time in a while. And of course, the next thing they did was check her into the best hospital in Korea. You could see Dojun finally relax a little, watching Grandma and Yuna smile together in the hospital room. After that, it was back to the burger place, because that became their little family tradition. Our hero, rocking his hoodie, and Yuna sat by the window and just enjoyed some burgers, like everything was safe again, even if only for a moment. Man, being a hero is tough, but taking care of family? That's real power. Anyway, after the meal, our boy came to the Gasan Hero Complex. Dude, even the master craftsman Mr. Choi couldn't stop saying how amazing the blue crocodile hearth Dojins bring. He kept telling him that with this thing, he could craft a sword way better than anyone expected. Naturally, our protagonist wanted to know how long it would take, and Mr. Choi thought about it for a second before saying it'd be about 3 weeks. He said he would start right away, too. Guy was pumped. But you know our MC? He always had more up his sleeve. He told him there was something else he wanted. Mr. Choi looked surprised for a second, but then grinned and said he could ask for anything. So, our hero pulled out this plastic bag full of weird, massive purple sacks. Mr. Choi freaked out a little and started geeking out, saying those were Velcro's threads and salivary gland sacks. Yeah, pretty gross, but also apparently super valuable. He was guessing our MC wanted some armor, maybe something for his own size. But Dojun just shook his head. Nope, not for him. He smiled a little and told him he wanted it for his younger sister. That caught Mr. Choi off guard, and he started asking if she was a hero too, since armor made from Velcro's thread was famous for being crazy strong. Forget lining up for the latest shoes, heroes had to line up just to get this armor. Our protagonist just smiled again and pulled out his phone to show a super cute photo of his sister Yuna. Mr. Choi straight up lost it, calling her adorable. But Dojun was serious. He wanted the armor to look like normal clothes, not some battle suit. Mr. Choi said he got it, but then he started worrying because kids grow too fast, and she might not even fit in the armor after a year or two. Our MC came prepared though. He pulled out a bottle of this bright green liquid, called it the essence of Telepu, and explained that if you mixed it with fabric, it made the material stretch 10 times more. Hearing this, Mr. Choi looked like his brain just broke a little. He couldn't believe it, but Dojun just grinned and said he was looking forward to seeing the results. But Mr. Choi was wondering where the hell Dojun learned about all these rare materials. Last time, it was Cyclops' blood. Now this? The dude was just confused. Meanwhile, our MC was leaving, looking all cool with a smirk, and said it was all because this was his second life. Bro, nobody would believe that if you said so nonchalantly like this. Meanwhile, in the middle of a busy city, Park Sung-wook was striding down the street, then into a basement cafe called Paradise Cafe. He was all judgy, thinking that any owner who set up a shop in a basement can't be very smart. But he was also glad, because he could finally meet that person in peace. He walked over to the table where a dark hooded figure was sitting. Yep, our man Dojun again. Sung-wook was already wondering if there was some secret reason a hero like Dojun wanted to meet here. He then handed over his business card, introducing himself properly. This man used to be a big shot at S Group, but now works freelance. Dojun introduced himself too, and Sung-wook sat down across from him. He cut right to the chase, saying Dojun was a hot topic hero these days and asking what he wanted. Our MC said Hyun Juyeon had introduced them, explaining that Sung-wook was the guy who helped rich people and heroes do things quietly. Well, the man admitted he could do pretty much anything, as long as it wasn't illegal. Dojun finally told him his big plan. He wanted to build a house. Sung-wook was like, dude, why not just go to a construction company? But then he figured it out. Our MC wanted a really special house. Dojun nodded and got super serious. Well, he said he needed the safest house in the world. Sung-wook, still cool, asked about the budget and where our boy wanted the house location. Dojun just said Seoul, and the budget was about 500 billion won. Hearing that, Sung-wook legit spit out his coffee all over Dojun's face. That was an insane amount of money. Our boy asked if he had never had that kind of budget before, and Sung-wook got flustered, insisting that wasn't the case. He started joking that maybe Dojun wanted a castle, not a house. Well, Dojun actually thought about it for a second and said maybe a castle would be better, and asked if 1 trillion won would cover it. This was so funny, even Sung-wook didn't even know what to say. Then, he got serious, asking if Dojun knew where the safest house in Korea was right now. Our boy said it was probably the chairman of the S Group's place in Gangnam. Well, Sung-wook said it was spot on. Chairman Oh's house was worth 110 billion won, but just building it and buying the land would be about 80 billion. With the kind of cash Dojun was talking about, he could build something way better. But there was a catch. He said, you couldn't even buy land in Gangnam. The place had never been hit by a disaster and was just getting more and more expensive. Sung-wook told our MC that he could build the best house, but finding the safest spot was the real problem. There's no land available. So, what did Dojun think? Our hero sipped his coffee, thinking hard. Then he looked up and said the safest place wasn't Gangnam. He said people there just hoped it was, but that was just their own belief. Nothing more. Hearing that, Sung-wook seemed confused and asked if he meant it was just a hope. Our MC explained that Gangnam being safe was just an illusion, something the media made up. He said nothing had happened there so far just by chance. The guy looked so serious that even I felt the chills. Dojun thought to himself that in his old world, it was the same. The only thing different was the order. Fractures popped up everywhere, not just in one place. But still, with that fracture, there is no safe zone. Suddenly, Sung-wook asked if Dojun had a spot in mind. Our hero said he'd buy a place in the Guro district. The man's eyes almost popped out of his head, and the dude basically yelled, "What the hell?" He reminded Dojun that Guro had a rift just a few years ago, and right next door, Mappo had one even more recently. But our hero just looked at him with that poker face and said if it was Mappo, he was actually the one who got rid of the rift there. Sung-wook leaned in, curious and a little worried, asking if there was any special reason. Dojun thought for a second, took another sip, and said it was just close by. Bro, that's it. He was choosing the spot because it was close. Yeah, typical Do-jun stuff. 1 hour later, inside this creepy forest, a giant claw and some massive monster stomping around, glowing yellow eyes and all. Then, out of nowhere, our MC charged at the beast and smashed the thing with his new sword. Absolute savage. In his head, he said the sword turned out way better than he expected. He remembered how Mr. Choi was super confident about it, like, flexing hard. He told Do-jun that this was the best thing he'd ever made in his life. When our MC tried to pay him, Mr. Choi got all flustered and said he couldn't take any money because Do-jun had brought all the materials. But then he peeked at his phone and lost it. Do-jun had already sent 1,000,000,000 won. He was shook, but our boy just said he didn't like owing people. What a baller move. Back to monster hunting. Our protagonist sliced through more monsters, golden energy flying everywhere. He stood over the bodies and thought to himself that the sword was worth hundreds of billions and made hunting a piece of cake now. For a few weeks, after meeting with Park Sung-wook, our MC went all in on hunting monsters to save up for land in Guro. But dude, the price was insane. Buying 3,000 square meters would cost at least 400 to 500 billion won, and maybe even more if people refused to sell. Sung-wook even suggested maybe buying a smaller piece of land, but Do-jun just said, nah, he'd make more money if that happened. No limits for this guy. He kept hunting, shattering monster cores with his sword. This was all easy money for real. Then, on a quiet night, Do-jun walked down the street with Yuna, his little sis, on his shoulders. The girl was all smiles, telling him she was happy Grandma would be out of the hospital soon. Our boy smiled back, trying to play it cool. But you could tell he was happy too. Yuna hugged his head and was kinda sleepy when asked why he'd been busy lately. Our MC just laughed it off, saying he was a bit busy with work. Suddenly, as they walked, a shiny white car pulled up with two men in black suits waiting by it. One of the guys stepped forward and asked if he was So Do-jun. Our boy looked confused and a little suspicious. The man said they were sent by Chairman So Gyeong-chol and politely asked them to get in the car. Now, here's where things got wild. Do-jun gave Yuna a gentle pat and told her to close her eyes for a second. She listened, totally trusting him. Then, bro, Do-jun's eyes started glowing red and he crouched down, this crazy energy bursting all around him. With one stomp, he cracked the ground like it was nothing, then kicked the car so hard it got smashed in front of the two men. Those dudes were terrified. One of them was bleeding and could barely speak. Our MC didn't even flinch. He just told them, in the scariest voice, to get lost and not come back. Yeah, fuck this CEO bullshit, trying to let him come back to their shitty conglomerate anyway. Then, the man ran away as fast as they could, probably regretting their life choices. Yuna opened her eyes, and Do-jun smiled at her, saying he just punished the people who tried to take him away from her. Yuna, all cute and innocent, asked if she could punish anyone who tried to take her away from her brother. Do-jun just told her not to worry. Then he bent down, let her climb onto his shoulders again, and she cheered him on with a big smile. Honestly, cutest sibling moment ever. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Juyeon and Inju were having dinner together. Inju was shocked to hear that Do-jun was trying to buy a house in Guro. Juyeon said he was doing it through the person she introduced. Inju went full drama mode, yelling at her bestie, asking what the hell she was doing. Juyeon just looked at her and said, what did she expect her to do? Inju basically screamed that Juyeon should move in next door to Do-jun, playing the role of the cool woman living alone. Hearing that, Juyeon said Inju was crazy, but Inju kept yelling, saying this was the moment to spend all that money she'd saved up. Man, these two girls are wild. I bet our girl Juyeon would also be moving the next day. But, because of Inju's non-stop teasing and dramatic encouragement, Juyeon's mind started wandering a little too far. For a split second, she imagined Gloria was in Do-jun's kitchen. Their faces hovered inches apart, their laughter soft and intimate. Gloria even dared to say it would be fun if they got closer. Now, Juyeon is screaming in her imagination. No, she couldn't bear the idea of that happening. Not to him, not with Gloria. Inju suddenly said it was totally possible that Do-jun was only moving temporarily. Since he was building a new place, he probably wasn't planning to relocate again within just a year or two. Juyeon, still nervous, she started wondering to herself if she should also move closer to Mr. Do-jun. Then, her sister noticed that she getting all tense and teased her, laughing about how nervous she was acting. Juyeon freaked out and called her in a dramatic way. But Inju suddenly turned serious. She said she wasn't kidding at all. She explained that after what happened in Brazil, their guild had to play things smart wherever they went. She said if that was the case, she would rather go all out, like a sports car, speeding down the autobahn. Honestly, that sounded insane. Now, Juyeon looked at her and asked if Mr. Do-jun was the sports car in this situation. She said that didn't even need to be asked. because everyone knew he was on another level compared to the other S-rankers. Her sister just confidently smiled, saying she even wanted to build a mixed-use building and run the guild office out of it too. She thought that actually sounded pretty good. Then Inju raised her wine glass and told her sis to hurry up with her plans too. Juyeon agreed, still nervous, and their glasses clinked in a toast. Anyway, now, at the Korean Hero Association office, our hero was there, but he wasn't alone. The big boss, Na Tae-wong, was waiting for him, looking all tough, with his spiky blonde hair and beard. The guy didn't waste time. He said Dojin had closed 9 rifts in just 2 weeks, and the amount was pretty wild. He called him in because he wanted to hear his reason for doing that, and he asked if Dojin thought Korea was about to get as dangerous as Brazil. Our boy didn't look stressed at all. He just pulled out his phone and showed his bank balance. 452 billion won. Yep, you read that right, billion, bro. He calmly said it was fine for now. But Na Tae-wong wasn't done. He asked why Dojin was so obsessed with hunting. Our MC, cool as always, turned around just a little. He said he was just doing what was in front of him, and that he needed money. The chairman couldn't believe it. He was like, money? But Dojun was dead serious. He wanted to build a house. He even said there was something about the construction he wanted to ask of Chairman Na Tae-wong. After that, things started moving fast around the city. The land deals exploded in the area where our MC was buying property. Juyeon, Inju, Na Tae-wong, and even people from Gillyflower Guild started getting in on it. And somehow, even other heroes and real estate speculators found out what was happening and started buying up land too. There was one real estate guy who basically lost his mind, laughing about how, if you really wanted to invest, real estate was the only way. He even ordered his worker to find out exactly where Dojun was buying and to grab as much land nearby as possible. The poor subordinate could only say yes and get to work. Then, rumors started flying everywhere, and more people jumped in. Land prices in the Guro district basically went crazy. But here's the thing, bro. Our boy had already locked down over 10,000 meters of land. That's a huge flex. Now, he was seen slamming blueprints onto a table. His buddy Park Sung-wook was there with him, looking at the blueprints and getting more confused by the second. Our boy asked if that was all of it. Park Sung-wook had no idea why Dojin wanted to build a house that was less than 500 square meters on a piece of land over 10,000 meters. He straight up asked what our hero was going to do with all the extra space. Then, our MC kept a serious face and handed him a document. He said he needed to make the house safe. Park Sung-wook, still totally lost, pointed to a round wall on the plans in the document and asked if Dojin was really trying to build a castle wall. The poor guy looked like his brain was about to explode. Then, he thought, since there was no need for fancy interior work, the house could be built fast, but they needed to tell the district office what the building was for. Our boy just smirked and said Chairman Na Tae-wong would take care of that. Park Sung-wook had no idea what kind of house needed the Hero Association's chairman to help. Now, the scene switched up. Out in a rift zone, a wild green forest, a massive, multi-limbed monster came crashing out of the ground, blasting red energy everywhere. Our hero was just strolling through the forest, humming to himself with a sword strapped to his back. Meanwhile, at the office, Park Sung-wook asked Na Tae-wong if Dojin himself had made a personal request. Then the chairman told him yes, that Dojin's request was pretty bold. Then, the action cut back to the rift, where Dojin was dodging attacks from a huge, bird-like monster. Back at the office, Park Sung-wook was losing his mind, asking if they were really trying to tame monsters now. Na Tae-wong just laughed and said he was shocked too. He said monster taming was totally unheard of. Meanwhile, now, our boy is walking to a giant, glowing volcano in the forest, sword still at his side. Then, he arrived in a cave. He stood alone. The ground cracked under his feet with power. Back in the office, Na Tae-wong explained that our hero had asked for permission to raise monsters on his land. That's right, bro. Our boy was planning to keep monsters as pets or something. Everyone was so shocked. Then he told him what was even more surprising. Turns out, the monster Dojin wanted to tame was Kasserian, a gigantic, terrifying serpent monster with glowing red eyes and a mouthful of sharp teeth. Inside the cave, our boy was already faced with it, who was roaring like crazy. Our MC's eyes glowed, and he told Kasserian he would take it easy today. He gripped his sword, and the ground split under the pressure. Kasserian whipped his massive tail, and the two of them went at it. The fight was nuts. Our boy was a blur, dodging attacks and swinging his sword. Kasserian's huge body smashed around. Dojun kept moving, his sword smashing into the monster's scales. After what felt like forever, and a shot of a giant volcano to show time passing, the fight was over. 1 hour later, the monster was lying on the ground, totally wiped out, eyes half closed, and tongue hanging out. Our MC just knelt by Kasserian's giant head and gave him a gentle pat on the snout. He told Kasserian he'd come again and said to him to take care. Then our boy walked off, still humming, looking pretty pleased with himself. The monster just grumbled quietly as our boy walked away. Anyway, now, in Juyeon's bedroom, the clock hit 7 a.m. Her phone started buzzing like it was about to explode, and her tired hand reached out to grab it. Poor Juyeon was half asleep, hair a total mess, and her eyes looked like she hadn't slept for days. She picked up the call and just managed a sleepy hello. Guess who was on the line? Yep, it was our MC, So Dojun. He asked if she was sleeping and said he wanted to ask something. Juyeon, still half in dreamland, wondered what the hell the time was right now. Bro, she sounded so done. Then, he just dropped the question. He asked if Stoneman also sold magic stone powder. She was confused and asked, "Powder?" She got up from her bed, looking annoyed, and wondered out loud who would waste such a special magic stone by grinding it up. She said turning it into powder made it lose energy anyway, and wanted to know why. He was suddenly asking. You could just see she was not in the mood for this nonsense. Meanwhile, our boy was sitting in a forest, surrounded by a weird red glow. In front of him is another rift. He just chilling and talking on his phone, like this was the most normal thing ever. He told her he needed the powder for something. Juyeon, now a little curious, asked where he would use it, but he just went cold and said, never mind, he'd get it himself. Then, she stared at her phone, totally fed up, and said to herself that Dojun was talking nonsense first thing in the morning. The poor girl was probably wishing she could go back to bed. Meanwhile, right now, in the forest, our MC literally walked into the rift that was in front of him. Anyway, in another location, the construction of Dojun's new house is getting started in the hand of Park Sung-wook. He started to think that the most basic thing to make a house safe is the outer wall. And the guards that will protect the house from inside the walls, which, in his plan is Kasserian, will be brought in when the construction is almost done. And finally, the next is creating a device to suppress external shocks, such as earthquakes. Anyway, now, a massive Cyclops monster showed up in front of our boy, its yellow eye glowing, while it got ready to smash. He stood in front of it, looking serious. He said he needed magic stone powder for that device. The Cyclops tried to crush him, but our MC moved like lightning and dodged the hit. He jumped up and kicked the Cyclops right in the arm, sending it stumbling back. Then he landed, blue energy all around him, and rushed the monster with his glowing blue sword. He looked ready for another round. Suddenly, he activated the Bandian sword technique. He gripped his sword tight, and a dark, powerful energy started coming off him. It was the Bandian sword technique, third form. The air spun around Dojun, and a wild red vortex formed. The attack had a crazy name too, Spiral Prehid Catastrophe. Dojun let loose a huge spiral of red energy. He was flying, then smashing the ground and blasting the Cyclops from below. The monster got caught in all that swirling power, roaring in pain as the energy tore up everything. The place looked like a mini disaster zone. The Cyclops collapsed, totally wrecked. Now, our boy stood in the middle of all this, sword glowing, a few drops of blood on his face, but looking pretty happy with himself. He reached down and picked up a big purple magic stone. With a little smile, he crushed it in his hand, turning it into sparkly powder that dropped into a glass jar. He stared at the jar, thinking hard. Then, he started to wonder to himself if this device could stop not just earthquakes, but also rift outbreaks, since those were caused by big shocks too. He thought if that actually worked, it would be awesome. Our MC is always thinking 5 steps ahead. Anyway, now, in another place. While Dojun was busy fighting monsters, a huge piece of news dropped on the public. The scene went to a big news studio, where the top story was that So Dojun was the grandson of T Group's grandson. That was a major bomb. Over at the chairman's office, Grandpa So was sitting with his wine, looking super pleased with himself. He thought Dojun must be freaking out, and he had called a press conference just to mess with him. In his head, he laughed that, after the rumors spread, everyone would only see Dojun as the rich kid grandson, no matter what he said. The press conference went nuts. Chairman So got up on stage and just let everyone know the family secret. Meanwhile, a bunch of office guys started talking about it. One buff dude said he always knew something was weird, wondering how a kid that young could be S-rank. He guessed T Group must have paid a crazy amount. Another guy called Dojun a diamond spoon, which basically means super rich from birth. Meanwhile, the public is wondering why even hold a press conference for this. Some people guessed he would just deny it and try to dodge the whole thing. When it was Dojun's turn to speak, he stood at the podium under all those bright lights, reporters firing questions and cameras everywhere. He looked serious, even a little tired, but he faced everyone straight on. He started by saying he was born out of wedlock and abandoned when he was a child. That hit the audience like a truck. People were straight up shocked. Even Juyeon looked like her head was about to explode. Then, our hero went on to talk about the life he had lived, short and clear, with his words. Even the people who didn't trust him started to change their minds when they saw all the proof. School records, photos from his old days, even interviews with his old part-time job bosses. A burger shop owner was smiling on TV, saying good things about him. People online started leaving wild comments, calling Dojun a legend, and even saying they wanted to marry him. Sympathy for him just kept growing. But get this, while everyone was feeling bad for our hero, T Group's stock price, which was rising before, suddenly dropped 30% in one shot. Bro, that's brutal. It makes Grandpa So clutch his head, looking totally destroyed. Yeah, his plan totally backfired.